there's a strange thing that happens that when you let go of the time is when you tend to like get that performance that you're looking for. And I think it's good to keep a very loose grip on those performance things that we're chasing after. I think I've kind of flipped it in my head, and this has happened in like different stages in my journey. Is like making it more about the process of what running is adding to my life and how it's helping like my personal development. Because man, it's it's a hard thing. Like running, trying to run at a high level, and really for anybody trying to maximize their running performance, it is super challenging. Like there's going to be mentally really tough points where things are not going the way that you planned, and like learning to accept the reality of how things are going and letting go of how I wanted it to go, how I thought it was going to go. And I think that there's this fear that if you have acceptance for things and you're willing to roll with it, that you might like lose the performance, put your willpower into it and just like make it happen. But I've not really found that to be true in my own experience. I feel like the more I'm willing to roll with things and the more I'm willing to just like relax about it, the better things seem to happen overall, even with the running too and the training, you know?
Hey guys, welcome to the Run Free podcast where we talk about training using our Holistic 5 principles. These are the principles we use every day in our training programs. At Run Free Training, we offer online coaching programs where you get a personal coach, you get access to our nutritionist, Joe Butler, the form analysis with our 1% coach, Mitchell Robertson. You get access to our online e-course that teaches you about each of the Holistic 5 principles. Coaching packages are only $199.99 with a 6-month commitment, and with that you also get 30 days of free coaching. You can sign up for coaching by creating a profile in our athlete portal. Find the link in our podcast description or head on over to runfreetraining.com. DM us on Instagram or sign up for a free consultation on the website if you have more questions about the next step.
All right, what's up, guys? Coming back at you at the Run Free podcast. Thank you for joining us again. Hopefully you caught part one with my little brother, Chad. We were talking about his debut marathon at the Mesa Marathon. What an incredible learning experience, building experience, lifetime experience he had there at Mesa. I don't think we revealed how fast he ran in episode 1, but we're going to get to it here in episode 2. And we're going to finish telling the story of his experiences in his debut. But before we do that, let's bring Chad into the conversation. How you been feeling, man? How's training been going?
Good, man. Yeah, I mean, we've had some ups and downs. We'll put it that way. But yeah, I think between the end of our last conversation, like you had a storm rolling in. If you guys kind of been following the saga of storms in California, it's been or I guess the West Coast, it's been a pretty wild winter. So yeah, we're between storms, but in that time I had a cold, also got a stomach flu on top of that. So had probably one of the worst 24 hours of my life, just like not getting too far away from the bathroom. So yeah, like the body's gone through some struggles. So I've been trying to roll with the punches here. But yeah, like had a few good sessions. So overall, like still pretty happy about the way that came out of Mesa. Feel like my body will get into a good place, and we've got 4 weeks here, so I'd like really jam on some training. So hoping to maximize this little block that we got going here and get some momentum going.
Yeah, man. Well, obviously I saw you navigating that sickness and stuff. We were exchanging some text messages and stuff. And I was reminded by how bad I am at listening to my body and how good you are. You're very good about just kind of like flowing. We had some big workouts planned, and you were quick to be the one to suggest like, hey, this is probably not great, not feeling good. But I know it's a little bit up and down and all over the place, but I thought it might be interesting for people to kind of talk a little bit about the subject of getting sick and training through it and your approach to that. Because I think it kind of goes in line with like what you talked about with your intuitive eating, just listening to your body and being aware of what your body needs, what it's craving. So how I see that kind of applying into how you handle sickness. But what is your approach to like, what do you train through? What do you don't train through? How much rest do you take when you try that first big workout back? What's your approach with illness and training?
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of experience in the last little bit here. Like I've got the flu twice in the last couple months, and I think a couple colds. which I think a lot of people are going through that, right? Like after the pandemic of not getting sick, not getting exposed, I think a lot of people are getting sick. Um, but yeah, this one I feel like kind of forced my hand. Like there was just no way. Like I couldn't hold down water. Like, and my girlfriend Claire got sick as well, right? So I lost like 7 pounds in a day. Like it was like nothing was staying down. So there was really this one, like there's really no question. Like it's like I'd have to rest. Like I am in a pretty bad way here. But in general, I think like when I was younger and maybe like a younger body, you can push through a little bit quicker. But I just feel like lately, if I try to train hard through the first, like, say, week of being sick, if I try to keep it going and like ignore the fact that I'm dealing with something, man, it just like always extends it. My training sessions aren't that great. And then it's also, I think a big thing for me is like, what am I willing to go through mentally, and like the mental emotional exhaustion of like just kind of being frustrated and not feeling good. Like that takes its own toll. And I think in marathon training, like you it's a big ask anyways. Like I feel like you're constantly fighting fatigue and trying to recover and get ready for the next workout. Like so I just I just know that I in some ways I can't handle that. If I set myself up where I feel depleted and really mentally taxed going into a period of training that's going to be really hard and difficult, I feel like I'm setting myself up to just struggle the whole way through. So I would rather just take a little bit of time up front and get myself healthy and then move into the training and be able to maximize it as opposed to like just having like really subpar training, through the sickness and then also coming back into like health. But I think typically like if I take 4 to 5 days up front and I'll just take days off straight away. Like I just won't do anything. I'm just like, I'm going to sleep as much as I possibly can and really take the first part of that sickness like really seriously, and not stressing about taking a little bit of time like completely off of everything. I'll find that like then I can jump back into workouts on the back half when I'm still a little bit sick, but it's that like lingering sickness where maybe you still have a little bit of a cough, like maybe some phlegm, but you can tell that like things are tracking upwards. And it's like same thing as like an injury. Like you're just not you're paying attention to the way you feel afterwards. So if I feel this huge dip in energy after my workout that I try to do, I'm like, maybe we're a little early getting back on it. So like I feel like for me, just learning how to be realistic and learning how to listen to my body and not force what I want to happen, um, always seems to yield good results. And when I have an idea in my mind of what I want to happen, and I'm just like, I'm going to do this no matter what my body's telling me, man, I always get myself in trouble.
Yeah, dude. I want to go back to a couple things that you mentioned because I thought they were important. I want to pause on for a second. Like when you talked about like losing 7 pounds, for example, to me, like that's a big sign that you should expect to be weak for a while,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how often does that happen where it's like an athlete like Mia my daughter before her last big race in cross country this season, she got like a weird viral cold or something. And she's like, yeah, I noticed my weight was down, not even 7 pounds, it's just a couple pounds, but she was weak for a while after that. So I think that's actually something that people can pay attention to and track easily, and be like,
Yeah.
what's happening with my body weight right now? If I saw a huge drop in water weight and I'm just totally depleted, you're not going to bounce back and be fine for a workout the next day. Like it's going to take some time to come back from that. Whereas the thing is tricky about it, right, is like there's some things, and I wanted to hear your perspective on this, and where I'm going with this is like there's some things you can train through, right? And like you can be all right. So like how do you figure that out? How do you navigate like, oh dude, this is something I need to respect. I need to take time off, like you were saying, versus like, let's try out this workout and see how it goes.
Yeah. I think it's like it's something we've talked a lot about, like in a lot of our run free content, has been centered around like reconnecting with your body and looking for feedback, right? I think that it's something I've been noticing in general, especially like I live in downtown San Diego. People are so disconnected from everything. It's like they're not even aware of their surroundings. Like they're just like right in here, right? And then, so I think in the same way, like, I think we're way more disconnected with our bodies than we think that we are because we're so wrapped up in like metrics are great, but sometimes metrics become like too much of a focal point, you know? Um, so for me, I think I've been on a journey of like trying to reconnect with my body, trying to get back to where I'm listening to it and respecting it, right? Because I feel like there is this part where it's like a lot of times my will wants to be somewhere else. I want to be running faster than maybe my body's currently ready for, or wants to be healthy when I'm not healthy. So for me, I think energy is a big one. Like I feel like in general, I feel like my energy fluctuates a lot. So that to me, it's like the first thing when I'm sick is like if my energy is low, if especially if that's coinciding with like not sleeping well, like say if you have a cough that's keeping you up at night. So I think if you're looking at those things like I'm maybe not sleeping enough, or maybe I'm sleeping a ton, you know, which is also an indicator that your energy is low, which was kind of how this last one was like it was just hard to get out of bed. um, I think listening to your body, listening to those energy levels, like when my energy comes back up and I can run and feel decently well, I think you should feel good on some easy runs before you even think about trying to jump into a workout. Um, and then like the weight thing, it's funny because I was trying to find information on the internet, like kind of like what percentage of body weight that you lose in a short period of time should you start to get maybe concerned about? Because I don't know if I've ever had that experience of not being able to hold water down. And that was not something that was very, like, I very much wanted to hold down the hydration. I knew that that's something that could adversely affect your body for a period of time. So it's funny because everything I think people always, even if they're sick, associate with like a lower weight with like some sort of positive mindset towards it. Whereas like for me, I was like, man, this is not good. I need my weight to get back up. So I was monitoring in terms of like, I'm obviously extremely dehydrated. And like, this is something where like I was tracking it over the days as like a recovery thing of like, when my body weight gets back up towards where it was before I was sick, then I know I'm actually like holding hydration again. I'm maybe getting food down that's helping me hold on to like some electrolytes and some sodium. So those were also cues. Those are also just metrics I was using to just say like, obviously my body is not right because it's not holding on to water yet.
Yeah, dude, you said some super good stuff in there, dude. And when you're talking about energy, my energy being low, my energy being off, I was thinking about like a good way for people to measure energy levels be by tracking your motivation levels. When you're like,
Yeah.
dude, I just do not feel like I've had that so often when I get super sick. I'm just like, dude, I just do not feel like training. I'm like, I should probably not be training then, like
Yeah.
motivation levels are hugely helpful. I mean, obviously, dude, sometimes you're just feeling lazy and you just need to kick yourself in the pants to get out there. But when you're going through sickness like that, like you need to pay attention to, dude, is my body craving an exercise, a run, a hard workout right now? Am I paying attention to my motivation levels? I think that's a really good way to kind of like know when you're ready to get back out there. But I 100% agree that you got to have a good easy run first. Like jumping straight into a banger of a workout is not a good idea. Usually, like I try to like probably change the workout that I had planned to lighten it up, make it an easier workout if it was going to be a big workout, just like
Mhm.
first, like, yeah, let's get some good easy runs, a good easier workout, softball workout, and then we can go back to the banger workout and try and hit it. Yeah, I don't know if you had any comments on that, but I had a question for you whenever you're
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think about it like same thing as like an injury, right? And Mitchell has said this on some of I think on the Q&A with Mitch and Jay is like you don't first test out an injury by putting it to the maximal test. Like you give it like a bite-sized chunk to test it out. Like you don't make your first tester like a limiter testing thing. So I think same thing with sickness. I think a lot of times we just think of sickness like it's over and you want to just jump back to where you left off. But it's like sometimes it might take a couple workouts to get there. And I mean, I love what you said about motivation. Like, I think for me, learning how to use motivation and mood is also another metric that I'm kind of including, has been huge because I think those two kind of coincide for me, right? So I think sometimes motivation is low when we have a high training load, right? Like your legs are tired, and then usually I'll use motivation in terms of like when I actually get into the workout, am I now feeling motivated? Because sometimes that like getting out the door, getting started can be tough anyways when you're carrying some fatigue. But like if you're coming out of sickness and your legs should be pretty fresh after resting, then I would say if you're not feeling motivated, it's not because of fatigue, it's because your body is still using energy to fight off some sickness, you know. um and then yeah, I think that's, oh, so mood, I mean mood, if I just pay attention to it because sometimes like fatigue, it, I think of like Lily. I know how when she was younger, like she would get these like carbohydrate depletions, right? And her mood would dip, but she wouldn't associate those two things together, right? So sometimes I think I'll actually feel my mood tank before I associate that with like the fatigue that I'm carrying. So
Mm.
sometimes if I'm willing to recognize that I'm like, I'm in a really bad mood right now, and like that might actually have something to do with the training load that I'm carrying, and maybe I'm not like recovered well and I need more rest. And I think when I allow myself to actually rest when I need to rest, like man, that's been big because you're just not going to maximize your training. Like it's great to like set goals for your training load, but if you're not maximizing your current training load, there's really no point in like amping it up, right?
Yeah, dude, I've been actually starting to do this a little bit more in my training as well, where I was like very systematic about my muscle groups I was hitting in the gym, you know. But I've started more just like walking into the gym now and just being like, what is my body craving right now? Like
Mm,
what does it want? Like what am I excited to hit? Because what I'm excited to hit is what is the freshest, what's feeling the best at the moment. That's what's I'm
yeah,
most training. So like that's actually a great like excitement. It's like an emotion, but you can use it as a training metrics to be like, what am I ready to train? So I think that's it's hard, it can be tricky to do, but also something that's important for people when they are communicating with their coaches to communicate that and just be like, dude, I did not feel like going out the door today. Like, but what I'm craving, like I'd love to do some hill sprints right now. It's like
yeah,
why craving hill sprints, like there's a reason why you're craving that kind of workout, but oftentimes those things just never get communicated between coach and athlete. And so we were doing a lot of that too, like we were shifting things around and pulling you out of Rory's workout, and then you were like, dude, I'm craving some mile repeats. I'm like, all right, dude, let's, like, the energy's good, let's go for it. And obviously there's some balance there, like, I mean, what you're doing. So like if you were proposing some crazy workout that I knew was gonna be a bad idea, we wouldn't do it. But like these were all like very reasonable cravings that you were having, so we are just kind of feeding your cravings. So I think that's a great way to go and about training in general, not just through sickness, just like as a general rule. What is your body craving? It's a great thing to go on. But let's talk about, because you go, the hard thing about getting sick, I don't even think is the physical component of it. It's like what can happen in your mind through that. Like when I was training, I was very much like a ride the high wave, high, like I'm feeling good, everything's great. Like I'm just hitting workouts out of the park. But then I could go the other direction too, right? And like get into this negative spiral, and then I'd just be going down, down, down. And anything could trigger it, dude. It could be a bad workout, it could be a bad race, it could be not feeling great. But sickness could be a trigger as well, right? It's like all of
yeah,
a sudden, dude, you go from feeling a certain way, feeling really good, training's going well, everything's great, and then you're sick, dude. And then you go for some of these runs when you're first coming back, or if you're trying to run through it, and you're like, dude, how did I ever run like this fast? There's no way. Like you feel like a totally different person, right? Like you just feel like you just lost like 50% of your fitness in like 2 days or a day.
yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about how that's been for you to start. And, hopefully we can give some people some helpful tips, as everyone has to navigate injury and sickness and downward spirals in their own
Yeah,
career. We're not alone in this.
yeah, totally. And it's funny, yeah, we were talking a little bit before. I was like, maybe we'll just keep this part on the podcast because I am at this point now where it's like, I'm kind of needing to get into like the meat of some marathon training, and like the body has still kind of been up and down and not quite cooperating the way that I hoped it would. It's not bad. I think some of it is like my own expectations around like how it's going to kind of jump back into things. Um, but I'd say one thing that I've learned and I'm really working on is this aspect of like we kind of have like a reality inside of our heads where we have our ideas about like how we want things to go, like our plans, sort of like our own thoughts and ideas about things. And then there's the reality that's happening outside of us, right? Like that is the objective reality that we all kind of live in. And for me, it's been about like this like practice of mindfulness of like just trying to like be more in the objective reality and like enjoy the experience of being there, like within the context of my running and then just life in general. So at first it was really good because I feel like I have experienced a lot of disappointment with my just performance over years, like when I came out of college and I was hoping to like really kind of take off with the running thing, right? So I have a lot of experience of being really in my head and disappointed with my performance and how things are going and feeling just like frustrated, right? Where you're like, I really, really want it to go this way. And it almost can start to feel like life has it out for you or something, right? Like you just
Yeah.
keep getting sick or injured.
You're doing everything in your power to make it go how you want it to go. That's where like that like mantra, like if you just believe whatever you believe will come true, is just totally not true, dude. And
No.
you could do everything 100% perfectly correct and not achieve your goals. Like that is the truth, you know? So I
Yeah.
feel like the navigating your own disappointment can be really, really tricky when and frustrating when you know you're doing everything in your power to make it happen, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's where like we talk about like process goals, right? Or like not being so focused on the outcome. And you said this that there's a strange thing that happens that when you let go of the time is when you tend to like get that performance that you're looking for. And I think it's good to keep a very loose grip on those performance things that we're chasing after. Because for me, I think I've kind of flipped it in my head, and this has happened in like different stages in my journey. Is like making it more about the process of what running is adding to my life and how it's helping like my personal development. Because man, it's it's a hard thing. Like running, trying to run at a high level, and or for I mean, really for anybody trying to maximize their running performance, it is super challenging. Like there's going to be mentally really tough points where again things are not going the way that you planned, and like learning to accept the reality of how things are going and like kind of letting go of how I wanted it to go, how I thought it was going to go, and really just like allowing myself to still, find the things that I can still keep, like the positive, the like silver lining, right? Like within the context of being super sick, of like having this flu and just being unable I was unable to consume any food, any water for a period of time. And I also felt like I couldn't even like consume like information. So my consumption was like down in all degrees, right? And the only thing I could listen to that like I could kind of take in, I was just like laying on the bed with my eyes closed, was this podcast that I told you about, Ryan, that's called The Way Out Is In. And it's like it's recorded with the attendant of Thich Nhat Hanh, Brother Phap. But anyway, it's like just they're in Plum Village in France, like in this monastery. It's just like very calm, just like super good information, like things that bring a lot of just value to my mind and my perception of the world. So it was actually this like weirdly cleansing experience of just having like really coming down to like having very low consumption of anything and only being able to take in like really good information. And then it's like you come out of being sick and your body's just craving like nutrient dense food. So there's just to say that like even in like my worst feeling bodily sickness, like there's still positive things that if I allow myself to see it are always there. And I think we can always find positive things and even like our worst, the things that we really don't want to happen. I really didn't want to be sick. It's like I have a finite amount of time right now to get to training. It's like I didn't want to be sick. But that's a continual process. And I think that like it gives you an opportunity to grow personally and really use your running to help you grow personally if you're willing to kind of engage with that aspect of like the difficulty of trying to make it happen. And I think that there's this fear that like if you have acceptance for things and you're willing to roll with it, that you might like lose the performance, you might like give it away, like that you need to like put your willpower into it and just like make it happen. But I've not really found that to be true in my own experience. I feel like the more I'm willing to roll with things and the more I'm willing to just like relax about it, and like loosen the grip on what I'm trying to do, like the better things seem to happen overall, even with the running too and the training, you know.
You know how I feel about performance is just that it's like a pesty distraction.
Yeah.
You It's like we get, in myself, I was in this for 20 years, like so wrapped up with like the numbers and wanting to hit a certain place or performance or win the age group or whatever it is, right? Like we're always chasing these PRs, these numbers, these splits. And like the whole time, like for me, like I can have just as much fun now running out in the woods at like 12-minute mile pace, same amount of fun that I had running through the streets of Boston at like 4:45 pace for a marathon. But that's simply because I'm not focused on the numbers anymore. Like I don't even start my watch. I don't even know what my time is, right? I just got like a bunch of dudes on our team that sundial watch. I don't know if you saw
Oh
that.
my gosh, I did see that. I was like, I saw that on Rory's. I was like, what is this thing?
Yeah, dude. So this is like state of the art, cutting edge sundial. It's got a compass in there, like on the bottom, and then the top level has this little thing that you flip up this sundial, dude, and you like position right and get it. You can see about what time it is. You probably just get the time just as well, though.
Oh my gosh, that's
But
hilarious.
anyway, what I bring that up is like I think we forget that the reason why do we run when we're little kids? Why do we run? Because it's fun, because we like the sensation. Just little kids just running around laughing their heads off, dude. Just having the best time, just like moving their bodies, right? And like now, like I've kind of rediscovered that. I'm like, dude, I was chasing these numbers for so long and it was fun. Like I love the performance end of it. Obviously, we have a running business. We're trying to make people faster. But we want to
Yeah.
like go about it a little different way. Being like, let's see if we can reconnect with that little kid who's just learned to run and is just running around laughing his head off, just having the best time because he's just feeling his body moving through space. That's it. And that's enough for him. But he's
Yeah.
having best time. If you told that little kid, like, dude, you know what your split was for that last 100 meters? He'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't even care. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. And so, like, if you can reconnect with that part of yourself, where you're like, okay, like, yes, Boston is coming up. It's right around the corner. How many weeks we got? Like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks?
6 weeks, I think. Maybe 6.5 ish. I'll have to
And
look
we'll
at
talk
calendar.
about it. Obviously, there's we want to go back about that and program it right, prepare properly for it. It's not like you just like run around doing whatever you feel like between now
Yeah.
and then. But the closer we are to that little kid just having fun, the better you're going to perform, right? And just the way more fun it is, dude. Like you can have a great time. You could freaking run Boston and like get last place in that race and have the best time, like have way more fun than if you get like second place, like if you're the person who's like all mad afterwards because you didn't win the Boston Marathon because you lost by half a second in a sprint, like forget that. You like, let's be that little kid back there in last place, just freaking having the best time, because if you're doing that, like you're gonna get so much. That's it. That's what running is about. That's one of the things. Like I'm well aware, like we like to run for causes, and running can be a super powerful thing, but I just want to be that little kid, that little kid just having the best time. And then you just hold the numbers loosely, it's like, dude, yeah, if I show up and crush it at Boston, dude, that's great. That's super cool. But like I can also go there and just like guarantee that I'm gonna have a great experience, no matter if I'm rolling and running super fast or if I'm just not having my day. And that's, I think, something that's super important for turning around marathons, right? It's like anytime you only have a couple months between marathons. I think we had like 12 weeks, right?
Yeah, I want to say it might have just been 10 weeks between Mesa and yeah, because like April or February 4th and February being a short month to April 17th. So yeah, about 10 weeks ish in a couple days.
Yeah. So, anytime we're turning around a marathon with that kind of time frame at your level, for like a lot of people who aren't training at a level that's like just barely sustainable, you're right on the edge and you're just looking for seconds and minutes in performance. Like if you're not training at that level, you can get away with racing more marathons and be fine and have really good races. And that's great. It's harder to do the faster you are, I guess, is my main point. So I think for someone as fast as you, it's you got to just go into that second one with just kind of this openness that like, dude, this could go super well. It could also like not, and it's kind of like a fun add-on rather than like the main event. And anytime you can take pressure off yourself, it's just training's gonna click better. It's gonna be more fun. You're gonna enjoy it more. So I think, like hearing what you're going through right now, like I get it when you're feeling that time crunch, you're like, dude, we only have like 4 more weeks of hard workouts and start tapering. It's really easy to just start putting pressure on things. You're like, dude, come on, body. Like we gotta turn this around. We gotta get going. I gotta have some good workouts. But I think the more we can just like you were talking about, just relax and just let go of everything, that's when good things start happening, and that allows us to listen to the body too, rather than just trying to force it to do something it's not ready for.
Totally, yeah. And that's where like so like when so in November we were training. I think at that point I think we'd already decided we weren't going to do CIM and we would do Mesa, or I think maybe we were planning on Houston at that point. We just pushed it back so many times. But I got the flu right after Thanksgiving, and I came out of that one really well. Where like I had a few training sessions, and then I had like a 15-mile threshold run at like just under 5-minute pace, which was like super solid. I was really stoked. And so I think I kind of I think I started to build this expectation that like I would ride out this like bit of sickness and then I would come out and like have some like really stellar workouts. And I think that's something that I'm reminded of and I think is a good lesson is like I think again comparison between us and other people is kind of a place we can fall into that's not great. Also comparison with ourselves at past points where it's like things are not gonna just happen in the same way every time. And so I think that's where I've got myself. I luckily I'm kind of like seeing it and be like, okay, I need to chill a little bit again because I think there was some good mindset stuff going into Mesa that I had, like taking the pressure off, making it a little bit more low key and not putting a ton of expectation on it. But I think I started to get excited about Boston, like we were talking right after Mesa about maybe doing the Boston Marathon and we got in and that excitement is great, but it can also like spiral a little bit too, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna like come out and just start smashing it now. And I think I rolled back into this initially feeling like super poppy with all the rest. And then it was like still the sickness was there. And I think I started to accumulate some fatigue with the mileage getting back in, which like we do need to get back up. And yeah, I just like I didn't hit any like super amazing workouts coming back out. And I kind of thought that I would. And I think again, it's like kind of just accepting how things actually roll out rather than what I was hoping for, what I thought was going to happen, and not getting like not letting that just be super discouraging because that's all my perception of how things have gone over the last like week or so, right? It's like I can take one workout that happened a certain way and I can either view that as a super discouraging workout or like it's like a that was decent, like, and we'll keep rolling.
Yeah, dude. Well, I know like, a lot of what they talk about in like Buddhism is like watching your thoughts as you would a cloud go by. And I think
Yeah.
that's interesting too. The more I'm trying to do a better job of this myself, like in the weight room, the more I can just observe the training results rather than judge it. This was good, this was bad, like you gotta be careful how you label stuff. Like
Yeah.
really does like totally affect how you see and remember and your mood and emotion about that workout, everything. Whereas if you can just like be okay, I just had this bad workout, that's interesting, like what contributed to that, what I learned from that, where can I go from here? Like the more you can go through life as an observer and just looking to learn, like there's gonna be something valuable. Sorry, one of the there's like a ice dam outside of our doggy door, and so sometimes some falling on the re-entrance. I need to like Um, but yeah, the more you can go through and just observe the workout and just be like, what can I learn from this? And I think, that's kind of the approach that we got to take now with your body too, being like, let's go on the rest of the weeks that we have before Boston and look to learn, observe, see what your body needs, what it's ready for, and just try to feed it exactly what it's willing to take in. And then obviously we got to get to a point of acceptance at the end where it's like, all right, this is what your body was able to take in this training block. So now we're going to go have some fun at Boston. We're going to look to learn a lot out there. Because that's when I think of like Boston for you, it's kind of like your first run in a big one, right?
Yeah.
Marathon against Kipchoge and the rest of the gang. All the guys will be there. Not all of them.
Chad v Kipchoge, round one.
Yeah, it's round one, dude. Kipchoge better be on his game because you're coming for me.
That's hilarious.
You're on you right now. But no, like it's a great opportunity to learn and to have a good, like, dude, I'll never forget my first marathon experience. I mean, this is really kind of like a debut marathon all over again for you because
Yeah.
it's very much like a training run in some ways. A fun training run, we'll get back to that. But I just remember my debut against Paul Turgot and Haile and all those guys. Dude, it was so much fun just like being in a group of those guys and just looking over and be like, dude, there's freaking this guy I've been watching on TV winning gold medals ever since I was a little kid. Now I'm running with him, pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's like, this is your chance. Like go freaking go out there, smile with Kipchoge and just enjoy running with him. Like it's a cool opportunity, not that he's God or anything, but we're here to inspire each other. So if you can get some inspiration from some other guys out there, and I'm sure you're going to learn a ton, you're going to learn a lot about the course. I'm not thinking this is going to be a one and done for you at Boston, so we need to like go there. I remember when I ran my first Boston, kind of felt like I was doing a lot of recon, it's like, okay, here we go. This course is pretty unique. You got to know how to work it. So it's good to start learning as soon as possible, So there's a lot of different, I think, good things that are going to come from this buildup and from the race that are totally not dependent on performance and how you fare and how you do. So I think if we are overly focused on performance and your workouts and your splits and all that stuff, we're kind of missing the mark. And more than anything, it's like I was saying too, it's like, that's not where the fun is at anyways. That's not where the good stuff is at. Like, let's get you to like reconnect with your love of running and the sensation of moving your body, dude. Because I mean, when you were running Mesa, you made it look super fun, dude. I don't know if you were having a good time, but it looked beautiful and like a really good time. So like,
Yeah.
let's connect with that guy and start having fun again, and then we'll just take whatever the body can give us, and it's going to make for a little bit of the training's going to have a lot of possibility to change, a lot of ranges we're gonna have to put on stuff because we're not going to know totally what your body's ready for until it's out there doing what it's doing. So you have to make some audibles and adjustments on the way, but we can set it up that way and structure it with a lot of freedom in it. But I just kind of like picture you just out running on the beach in San Diego doing some fartleks and just using an old school Timex or sundial watch if you want, dude, and just reconnecting with that sensation, that love that you have for running.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll circle back to something and then I'll kind of bring it back to where we're at now. But to talk about what you were saying before about the cloud, right, passing through. I think that oftentimes the thing that hangs us up and causes like so much disruption in our training is like trying to hold on to things for too long or for something that's not there yet. At least for myself, I found that. And it's like, so this last little bit, I kind of thought that and this comes back to like, I was kind of telling you what I was craving, right? Like, I was like, I got some good pop in my legs. Like, maybe we do like a short tempo of something like 8 to 10 miles and like really jam. So I had this idea in my head that I was gonna just like rip like a 10-mile threshold run like really fast. And that didn't really work out. Like I was still holding on to some sickness when I did have freshness in my legs, and I was gonna do it this morning. But by this point now, like I have a little bit of fatigue, so all that pop is seemingly gone. But I still had in my head like, like I would like to run, say, like 450 low pace for 10 miles. So I went out and I was running 450 pace, and I ended up like by 4 miles, I knew like this is not happening. So I just finished at 5 and ended up just like a little bit under 450 pace, which, like, again, it's like your perception of things. That's still not like a bad run for me right now with like not having great feeling legs. What was that?
Just under 450 pace for 10 miles.
That's what I was thinking I was going to. I only did 5 miles.
But you're still under 450 pace because that's what you said.
Yeah, I was like 449, but that was partially just like,
It's pretty good, dude.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's all about like the way that I thought that I was gonna have like just a smashing good 10-mile run coming out of the sickness, right? That was me being in my own head and like getting, but like the way that I felt, so we did mile repeats last week. I felt so good that day. I felt like top of the world. Like I didn't feel like great. Like I felt good during the workout, but in my afternoon run, like I felt like amazing. And I think that and I have a tendency to do this where it's like I feel good and I probably overload it too much on one day, and then I do get fatigued because then I was like super hungry the next day, like kind of been up and down with the energy levels the last few days since then. Um, but just to say, I think that like that was a good checkpoint of like, dude, remember, we're not trying to race now. Like, leave that for Boston. So I think like from now until Boston is just about getting in work, whatever is like going to set us up the best. And then like Boston is when we're going to find out what where the fitness is at, and really give it a solid go. Cause like, I mean,
Take down that picture of Kipchoge off your mirror in your bathroom, dude.
take it down. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I just like, it's been a while since I've had like a workout. And I think this marathon training, like in marathon training, I just don't think you have workouts where it's just like, you're like, yeah, that was like, my legs just felt amazing and I just ripped it. Um, and I think I'm trying to let go now of that, like needing to be encouraged by my workout, like by some performance on a workout to be able to feel like I'm in a good place, things are tracking well, right? And then just like let's just let go of that, like almost like purposefully. Like I think in some ways when I've purposefully run slow in my workouts, like not really run slow, but just not try to like smash them. Um, Historically, that's been great for me because then I think I'm actually able to recover faster. I'm not digging. Like I think it's something that we run into sometimes as endurance athletes where it's like we get in our heads that maybe it's like we don't give ourselves credit enough for like how tough we are and how willing to go deep we are. And I think sometimes I think that I always need to be working like super freaking hard. And it's like I think in actuality, if I brought it back a little bit, like I typically actually absorb the training better.
This is where it'd be helpful for us to like be in person, because like I can like so I had Bia and Rory out doing some mile reps right this last week, and I could just read how hard they're working just by their facial expressions and their breathing patterns and stuff. So
Yeah.
I told we are supposed to do, I think it was 8 by mile at like half marathon current fitness kind of effort. So for those guys, it should be around 440 pace, right? Somewhere right in that range. But they were rolling like 433s or whatever, the first couple ones. They were feeling good. So I was like, okay, let's just roll with that. But then like we got 4 or 5 in and I was like, I'm not loving it. It's looking like they're working harder than I want them to work. So then I did what you're talking about. I was like, all right, guys, next mile you have to run 445, not a step quicker, right?
Yeah.
So I held him back for that one. Then I let him go back to the 430 mile. And the next one was like, okay, let's go back to that one. But like that allowed them, just that little reprieve allowed them like catch their breath, come up for air, and then go back to it without like overdoing it in that workout. If they had just tried to pace it at that pace the whole time, they probably would have blown up and not felt good coming out of it. And it probably would have been not great workout. And then I threw another 445 mile at him on the last one too. So rather than like letting him like, I'm going to crush this last mile and kick it in. Like I was like, no, we're not doing that. Like you're going to run 445 and just try to make it smooth and easy.
Yeah.
those are the kind of adjustments we need to make. And maybe I need to, like, with your training too, put like, all right, so like this is kind of like the goal pace, this is the acceptable pace, and this is like the speed limit, like no going faster than this, you know.
Yeah.
And with that one, it was just kind of like open. I didn't even have a pace down, you know. But I think your idea of what was going to be a good workout, my idea of a good workout.
Well, again, it's kind of comparison too, and I think this is like the whole bit of like why it's good to have like I think the performance thing and the metrics of like time, they're nice for tracking progress, right? To make sure that we're like that what we're doing is working, right? Like if we're trying to make improvements, we do want to track that. But I think like yeah, but like you were saying, it can become such a distraction, right? Where it's like and I forget, I don't know if I said this on a previous podcast, but say for me, if I was like, I think I'm a 209 guy, like, where am I getting that from? What does 209 mean to me, right? Like, I don't really know if I'm a 209 guy. Like, it's fun to go try to like push for that, right? But that's probably coming from like other people who have run 209 that I think I'm as good as, right? Like, maybe it's just like some projection of how things are going to progress. But
Dude,
it's,
even
it,
if you hit the same exact workout as a guy who hit 209, say you're running with the 209 guy, you're doing every single workout together. He could be a 209 guy and you could be a 211 guy. Like a lot of it's like, okay, like what kind of effort did you have to freaking race that 15-mile threshold to hit
yeah.
4 days, or were you just like, dude, that was pretty easy, that was pretty controlled, you know? So that's something to remember too. It's like you could have a buildup where you don't run as fast in training as you did in a previous buildup, but you did it in a much more controlled manner, and then you were actually in better shape and you race faster as a result, you know? So it's good to remember, like, dude, even if the buildup is not quite as good on paper as a previous one, doesn't mean you're not in as good a shape, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading something about this guy who's another tracksmith athlete, Mick. I'm gonna mess up his last name. It's like Icaforno or something.
Okay,
Um
that's all you.
yeah, but anyways, he at Boston last year, I think he ran like 211 something, and I think at the marathon project he ran sub 210. He's like 209 something. And they were talking about his training that he like his 5K splits and most of his work were like 16 something. So he's running like 5:15, 5:20 pace on some of his workouts, right? He said he didn't see marathon pace almost at all in his training for Boston last year. And I think it just goes to show that like you don't need to like prove it all the time. Like it's about developing those energy systems, about getting like that physiological response that you're looking for. And that might not look like hitting super fast paces, right? Especially if you're not recovering from them. So yeah, just in thinking about my own training moving forward, it's like, okay, I need to put my mind in check again here. And you know, I think that the volume has been pretty low from being sick. You know, I think I need to get back to like some of those big beefy workouts that we were doing before, but then like just really take my approach of like, we're getting in the work, we're trying to get the response we're looking for here, but I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to smash every single workout. Like I think just getting my mind in a good place. Cause I know like today, I could have gone 10 miles, right? If I didn't go out blazing fast, if I didn't have some expectation on the pace being that quick, like I definitely could have run 10 miles at 5 minute pace a day, which would have been probably more productive. And we can chat about how to kind of move forward from here since I've yet to check any long tempos off in the last little bit. But anyways, just to say again, like I think like being realistic is always a positive thing, and I think being like you were talking about being objective about things, I think the quicker that we can get out of our heads and view things from an objective standpoint of like what's actually happening, like because if your body's not cooperating and you're not recovering, there's no point in continuing to just like force your will on it, right? Like the quicker you can just like pay attention to what's happening and make adjustments and keep rolling, the more it's actually going to benefit you overall anyways.
Dude, 100%. It's like when I'm lifting in the gym, dude. Like I was doing a deadlift today and it was just terrible, dude. It's just terrible. And I have a lot of different reasons why I think it's terrible or whatever. But at the end of the day, like you gotta just adjust for it. You gotta be good to yourself. Like I could have been like, dude, I'm just gonna freaking hit these numbers anyways, the same ones I hit last week, and I'm gonna like break my back to do it. No, dude, it's like if you're feeling bad, like you can still I still worked out. I still did deadlift, but I was like, okay, let me just work on my weaknesses. Like, what are my weak points in my deadlift? Let me focus on that today and not freak out because I'm not pulling 500 pounds. Like, it's all right. Like, just chill out for a workout. And then I'm always amazed, dude, because you feel like when you've had one bad workout, sometimes you're like, dude, I lost it. I freaking lost it, dude. It's gone. I'll never be the same.
Totally. That was telling me today. I was like, what's the point? Let's pull out of Boston. I can't even run that pace for 5 miles, whatever.
It's over, guys. It's over. I'm never gonna be the same. That can change so quick when you're good to your body. Like it doesn't change when you're bad to your body. When you're just like, oh, I'm gonna make this work. That is not gonna work, dude. It never works. You gotta like lighten things up and work on your weakness, which I think is my kind of thought process with you from this point to the race. It's like, dude, we've talked about it. Like from all like your biking background, running background, you have a huge engine, right? Like I'm not really concerned about your engine. We do some light touches. I'm not light touches. We do a couple big touches and you're good to go, right?
Mm.
But there is some stuff we can work on. And luckily, like for you, the stuff we need to work on isn't even necessarily like marathon specific. Like I bet you could go out and run, 2.5 hours at 5:20 pace tomorrow if I told you to, but we need
Mm.
you to get real comfy at like 450 to 455 pace. That's the goal, right? Like I think you'll be fine. Whereas someone else, maybe that's not their strength, and they need to be able to go out there and run 2.5 hours at 5:20 pace.
Mhm.
So everyone's going to be different, but like I really want to identify your weaknesses and work on those, and then just we hit on your strength a couple times and you should be good. I'm not worried about your fitness, and obviously we need to do some things specifically for that course, callus for it, some hills, which you've been liking those hills anyways, so we're gonna keep hitting those hills hard, and do some of those uphill downhill runs, and I think you're gonna be good, dude. Yeah, but dude, yeah, you've been through it, dude. It hasn't been an easy times from Mesa to here, but I think because you've been listening to your body and doing a good job of just like today, like not being like, I'm just gonna force myself through this 10 miles, even though that first 5 didn't go as well as you'd hoped. Because you've been doing that, I think that makes it possible to turn things around here and start feeling good soon, back to your old self. You're not far off, dude. If you're running 5 miles at 450 pace, you're right there.
Yeah, yeah, and I always like I'll say this to my athletes too when they have like a decent like I had one of my local guys did the kook run that Rory also did, and he had a PR, but he didn't feel very good, and like he didn't even I saw him at mile one and could tell like he didn't look poppy like he didn't look engaged in the race at mile one of a 10K, but still had a PR and like we were still making forward progress. And it's like, dude, if you're getting PRs on days where you're not looking super great, you're not feeling great, like it's maybe on paper it doesn't look as good as you were hoping for, but like you got to take that as some positive movement.
That's huge.
So yeah, so all things considered, I think like having been sick, not having a ton of like run volume and missing a bunch of stuff, which I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like coming from marathon to marathon, it's never going to be a super fast transition. So to say I missed a bunch of stuff, I think is maybe pushing that too far. But just to say, like, I think I should be happy with where I'm at. Actually, it's like we're in a good spot to move forward.
Yeah,
Um,
dude,
but yeah,
sometimes like, the numbers are scarring you like they can do, like when we've
yeah.
had a couple bad workouts, or not, yours weren't even bad, but in theory, uh, when you've had a couple bad sessions, like it can get in your head. So there's some things you can do when we're coming back to not have that be an issue. So like for me, one of the things was I would just do my workouts with the Timex watch, and I wouldn't even know what pace I was running, and I just kind of
Yeah.
like reconnect with the right effort level. And then you can also like reconnect with what I was talking about and just like falling back in love with the sensation of running. It's easier to do that when you're not staring at numbers on a screen on your watch. So that's one option we can do. Another option I've done with some of my guys is just like they'll start their GPS watch, but then like it will just be set to like time of day. And so they're recording the whole run. They'll see what all their stats are afterwards. But during the run, they're just looking at the time of day, looking at the sundial. Obviously, that allows you to get away from the numbers as well. So, if you're feeling like either one of those things would be helpful for you, even just for a couple workouts, a workout here and there, those are always things we can kind of integrate into the training as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe doing everything a little bit in like a progressive manner. So like always setting out being like pretty moderate, like on purpose, I think would be good for me. So it's like I'm
We're
never,
planning to go out with Kipchoge. We can't do that,
oh
dude.
gosh, yeah. Well, the thing is, dude, I mean, I honestly, I feel like I chronically go out too hard on stuff. So I feel like that's no problem. I feel like that's not something we need to worry about training too much.
If you do progressive, it just means you'll run it even then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And if I get dropped by Kipchoge in mile one, maybe that will be a good thing overall.
You have to make it at least 1 mile, dude. I want to see you in the lead for the first mile.
That'd be hilarious. It goes out in like 4:07 or something.
Because everyone wants to run with Kipchoge. Everyone's sprinting to get in front of Kipchoge.
Yeah, it's gonna be CJ and Kipchoge, and it's gonna be the downhill world championships unofficial.
Then you got that guy from New York who likes to go out like crazy too, man. So
Oh
you're
my, I know, dude. It might be. I'm excited to have like a front row stage of like getting to watch it for a little bit. I mean, granted, it'll be probably down a bit.
I'm gonna make the bold assumption that out of whoever's in that lead group at the mile mark, I'm gonna say 25% of those people do not finish.
Really? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll honestly be interesting because it's also just so many. There's just so many people in the race in the lead side. It's pretty wild. Which is fun. I think it's interesting that Mesa for me had like very low expectations just because it's like a small race or low pressure, I guess I should say. Also similarly low pressure just because the such a ridiculous field at Boston. It's like I don't know, man. Like I'll be happy with all sorts of outcomes at the end of the day. Like you were saying, it'll be a cool experience. I think just getting to be part of like what is looking like is going to be a historic race will be pretty sweet.
Yeah, you could do so many different fun things in this race. Like you could just try to rip a freaking huge PR in the half marathon and then just the crowd for the back half.
Just get some TV time. That's all that matters.
Yeah, dude, that'd be so fun. I almost want to come back and do that.
I'll think about it. Well, maybe we'll see how this build goes.
If you see Chad in the front, don't think he's gonna drop out at halfway. He's taking it to the line.
Yeah, click your watches at the halfway mark. I'm gonna kiss to the crowd. Thank
See
you.
if you can break. I have the family record at halfway mark of Boston. It's 61:48.
That's pretty ridiculous. I'd be happy coming through for sure at 61. Anything.
I think you could break an hour.
You think I could break an hour on that first half?
Maybe, dude. If you're running 5 miles at sub 450 pace, you're on your way, dude.
That still is only like 63-minute half marathon pace.
Might be a little bit optimistic. Maybe not this time around. A different time, dude. We'll go back and we'll see it in training. We'll see if you can break an hour for the first half in training at some point.
We need to go. There's like one of those rebel races. Actually, the guy who got second at Mesa, did he break an hour? I think he might have broken an hour at one of these rebel races. There's one in Las Vegas. It's like negative like 5% or something, and he ripped it.
Probably don't
Which
even
actually,
the next day, dude.
oh my gosh, he must be a good downhill runner because he does a bunch of stuff like that. So, and he actually, he just ran the half marathon at Las Vegas, which is funny. The lead pack took a wrong turn or something, so they ended up doing 20K. So actually, a guy broke an hour. They're like sub 1 hour half marathon for this Canadian dude, but it's like unfortunately it was like a K short.
I bet they had GPS watches on. It'd been great seeing him come across the line, just so pumped for like an hour for that half marathon.
Oh, that would be such a bummer. You're like, actually, you're about 3 minutes off.
You were super
Um,
close. You made it through 20K though.
but JJ ran like he ran like sub 5 minute pace or just a tad under. So I was like, I think that actually the Mesa Marathon, and we actually need at some point go back through the whole race here. But I'll talk a little bit about like the finishing time and like kind of being a little bit more encouraged by like how that translates because it's good amount of downhill in the first half. I think it's easy to kind of start discarding it a little bit in my head of like it was a good race but did have a lot of downhill. But yeah, just looking at
There's so many factors, dude.
yeah.
Like things that make it fast, there's things that make it not fast, and it just is what it is, dude.
And then every time well, yeah, we need to let's go ahead and jump back into the marathon because I think we need to run back through it before I start talking about all the other stuff around it.
We're just
So
coming in through the back door, dude.
yeah, yeah. So I think we left off on the last episode. We were talking about I came through mile one, was trying to like keep the emotions kind of in check because you definitely don't want to be all fired up at mile one of a 26-mile race. Um,
Get emotional, just to warn you.
what's that? It always gets emotional.
The whole family can get emotional.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. I can think of like all these images of you just like going nuts like at the crowd and was that I mean New York for sure at the trials that 1 year. Did you also do that at Houston? Were you kind of going crazy at the end of like your half marathon?
When I watch that trials race, I'm not that I watch it every single night. I like take a break
Every time you before
every
you
other
go to bed, right?
night, dude. Let me go slowly.
Before all Sarah's races, you're like, oh, let's watch New York again.
Hey, there's this really good race in New York in 2007. No, the first time I saw it race, dude, I was embarrassed. I was like, oh, dude, I was really emotional. But at the time, it felt totally natural. I was just being me. That was it. So I
Yeah.
guess I should it.
I think it was cool, man. I think it got people super fired up too.
Definitely like one of the specialist moments of my life, if that's a word.
Yeah,
So
I've thought about that too, like kind of the way I'd feel if things and like I felt good at finishing Mesa, but I was thinking about kind of that process of finishing a marathon. Dude, there's a huge emotional release that happens when you do something that challenging. Like I think, and I would say this for anybody, like kind of give that to yourself. Like don't avoid having that emotional experience at the end of your race. Like that can be a really like you're saying that's a big moment in your life. So like I would say don't let embarrassment, don't get in your head about it. Like let yourself have that experience because I think you deserve it if you've gone through the process of training for a marathon and completing a marathon.
totally. And dude, my emotions did me right for the most part in marathons, like I
Yeah.
would get, dude, I think I was telling you this story dude, okay, so imagine yourself warming up in a church, like with all these like Kenyans, African dudes, and you're running around this tiny circle on this tiny road, everyone's staring at each other, just quiet, right? And everyone's just like getting in the zone. And then this small opening appears in the crowd, in the huge crowd that's waiting by the starting line. And then there's a human like river that you go through to get to the starting line. And freaking they're fired up. They see you like, Ryan, yeah, let's go. And so I start getting fired up, I'm like, yeah, let's go. So then by the time I get through this human tunnel, dude, I'm just freaking so fired up, dude. I feel like I'm just going to war. But dude, I didn't fight it off. I wasn't like, I need to be relaxed, calm, chill, start of a marathon. No, dude, I was like, let's go, my freaking crushes. You're gonna crush us, everyone's gonna crush us, Like
Yeah.
it's okay to like experience emotion and kind of ride it. Obviously, like you want to monitor it sometimes, like at least the negative ones. But the good ones, dude, I give pretty much unlimited access to me at all times during marathons. So Remember that when you're in Boston, especially when you're going through that human tunnel.
So so even early on, because say like I mean, it's going to be a cool experience starting out Boston, right? Like I think the whole experience is just going to be worlds different than how Mesa was, right? Which, like you're saying, it's kind of cool to almost get like a second debut marathon. Um, like you would let yourself get kind of fired up in those moments, like early on in the race.
So here's the thing. It's like I would have that kind of energy like on the start line, right? But I kind of like felt like I was putting in my back pocket a little bit, because obviously, like, dude, I wasn't running the first mile as hard as I could. Like that would just be stupid. But
Yeah,
dude, like use your head, use your brain, it's like I wasn't going out like I mean, I'd go out in the 4:30s for the first mile. That first mile runs pretty quick, but I don't think that ever hurt me. I was never like, this is where you go back to the sensation of training, being like, okay, like just run the sensation I know I can hold for 2 hours and 10 minutes for however long it's going to be, right? And if
yeah,
it's a 30 at the beginning, then it's a 4:30 at the beginning. I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared to listen to the sensation of my body and what my body's telling me it can do, and to go give it a go. Like the numbers can hold you back. Like they can hurt you, they can hold you back. They can be good too. They can encourage you and stuff, but they can really be detrimental to performance if you're holding on to them too tight. Now, that's not, you got to know yourself and your body. And you learn this in training. You learn this by running 2.5 hours, Rory ran over a marathon yesterday. He was running 28 miles. And he learned a lot about himself in that run, and his energy levels and what kind of energy he can sustain for that distance, right? And I'm not saying everyone should run a marathon in training, but I'm saying you learn your lines in training, and then you got to just know where the lines are, and then have the same approach for the race. But it should be quicker in the race because you're rested up, you're tapered up, all this energy is available to you. You can try and keep it out if you want, but I'd encourage you, like, take all that energy in, put it in your back pocket, and use it over the course of the race. So yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be smart early on, but I always tell people it's easier to slow down than to speed up as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes it is nice to like have a little bit of time in the pocket, right? Like to work with on the back end. Well, yeah, I mean, I totally get that too. I think there's a big difference between getting emotional but still running like the right proper pace, right? Versus just like getting emotional and lighting it up. Like, was it the Fifth Avenue mile within the context of the New York City Marathon? Like, some dudes get super fired up and just like blow themselves away because they like just rip
It's
that mile super fast, right?
That's First Ave when you come off the bridge.
First time.
You get a little downhill. It's like the perfect scenario for a really fast mile. Little downhill coming off the bridge. Crowd is just at its biggest there, super loud. And that's a good place to move too. I think you're coming through like 15, 16 miles. So you're starting to get into a little bit. So that's just, historically where things break up, not necessarily every year. But that's how people win the New York City Marathon. They get away on that mile. They use the energy. They get away and take it to the line. Can really come back. It comes back to get most people though, right? Like
Yeah.
most people, if you throw in a crazy mile, because it's like, think about it, if you're running this imaginary line, right? This is the max sustain energy output that you can sustain for the course of a marathon, right? So you're riding this line, and then you're here the whole time. Your line's here, you're just riding it, and all of a sudden you're like, boop, and
Yeah.
then you don't just come back down to this and be fine. You now your new line is down here, right? And so you're like that. And so you got to respect your lines, and that's really got to be your biggest guide out there, is your lines, and being able to know like when to cross them, when not to cross them, how much you can cross it by, because you can get away with like little increases in pace. But that's why people who are, say, if you can average 4:45 for a mile or 4:48 per mile for a marathon, right? And you're running at 4:52 pace, then you can come down up to like 4:40 for a mile, and it's not going to kill you, resettle back to where you can sustain. But if you're right on that line and then you go above it, you're just going to go right. So I think, that's why you see people who seem to be able to get away with it, but really, like, in my mind, they're just fitter, they're not as close to their line, so they can throw in
Yeah.
those kind
Yeah, totally. And that's why like I do like like I always tell my athletes, we have all these metrics that we're working with, right? But I really do want perceived exertion to be like a pretty critical one there, where you are like connecting those things, right? Because ultimately, the line of what pacing you can run, even where your heart rate's going to respond to different pacing, is affected by like the fatigue that you're carrying. So you're going to, like you were saying, you're going to be fresher in a marathon. So it's like you got to be able to adjust those things. So I think the one thing that's more static is the perceived exertion, right? Like maybe you feel a little bit fresher earlier on, but overall, it's like what you can do for 2 to 3 hours, should the exertion should feel maybe a little bit better on race day, but it should be somewhat similar, right? Like you can kind of feel that line of when you're going too hard.
So I'll be curious to have you go back through Mesa and describe like what your perceived exertion was like and what you would do differently if you could go back and run it. If you do anything differently at all, maybe you just do exactly the same, but what it was like over the course of the race. And then, yeah, like how you would have adjusted it if you could go back and do it differently.
Yeah. Okay. So we went through first mile was 4:42. That was probably
Which was
like the
a
fastest
good
downhill
mile.
mile. Yeah.
I didn't feel like that was too quick, you know?
That felt like that felt like so easy. I felt like I could have just been breathing through my nose on that mile. Like it was very chill. Um, I think that it rolled like kind of still pretty much just lightly downhill until mile like 4.5, where we got like I forget how long that hill is. I think that hill was like a mile and a half or so, at least a mile and a bit at like 2.5%. So like there was a little bit of a rise there. And that one, like you were on the other side of the road, kind of yelling some instructions at me. And then we were just like, keep the effort the same, right? Like don't like we got some good time in the bank the first couple miles. Let's just keep the effort stable. So that I felt good. Like I didn't feel like I really pressed the hill at all. And that one I think was like between 5:25 and 5:30 of that. Which honestly, like maybe I could have gone a little bit faster, but I don't think I needed to, based off of the finishing time. Um, then it was funny. So I transitioned over the hill well. I tried to get like kind of back up to speed because I think that's a place where people sometimes have a little bit of lag between like a hill and getting back up and up to the speed that they need to get to on the downhill. So I had some good miles coming off of there. So that was like, I think 6 to 7 to like 10 miles was pretty good, like rolling down. But there was a funny sensation. Like the race started at 6:30, which I don't typically train super early in the morning. And so that means, waking up at like 4, I might even have been up before 4. And so sometimes like just not getting enough sleep or like having a weird sleep cycle messes with me too. I had this weird sensation of like, I just felt strange in my head. I just felt like either I'm like about to bonk, like I felt like I needed to take a nap all of a sudden. It was a really strange sensation.
I know what you're talking about, dude. It's that feeling. I get this at dusk sometime I run where it's almost like a lightheaded sensation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like right when the light is changing, huh?
It's something to do with being up because this also happens to me if when like as I get older, this happens more often where I'll just wake up at like 4 in the morning for no reason, and then I can't fall back asleep. And it is like right around that time the sun's coming up and I should be kind of like in my normal routine would be getting my energy up. It's like you just tank and you're just like, now I feel exhausted and I need to go back to bed, but I've had coffee, so I'm awake, and it just like totally messes with your whole system. So yeah, I had.
Point towards we talked about this in the first episode, but like adjusting your clock a little bit before the race, getting up earlier and earlier. I remember I actually used to do that when I was in Mammoth training, where I'd start getting up, like if I was racing at East Coast time, I'd start getting up and like doing all my runs at like run start time, like the race. So that's something we could think about doing. Luckily, Boston's a late start, so it's almost like perfect timing for.
Yes, thank you, Boston, for being like a reasonable race. Why are we always getting up so early? Um, yeah, yeah, I think that's really smart though. And like if it was a bigger race, I think that for sure would have been something we probably would have done. But yeah, like that's definitely. I think having gone through that experience, I would say I probably would do that. Is start to get my body used to waking up that early. Obviously, I think you kind of have to evaluate the cost if it is costing you sleep in that period of time, right? Um, but yeah, I think playing around with that and figuring it out would be helpful because it went away. I think partially it was like just not getting too stressed about it. Because when you get that sensation and you're at mile 8 of a marathon, there is this like capacity to maybe freak out a little bit.
Especially
Um,
when you're all by yourself out there too, dude, because you're like, you don't have anyone else to rely on. You're not like, oh, let me just tuck into this guy in front of me. It's like, dude, you're responsible for holding that pace, like just you, you know?
yeah, totally. And I know that like again, managing your mind during a marathon, I think can be challenging, right? So like in that moment, I did have this thought of like, oh, if I had a bad couple miles here, like if I for some reason my energy got all weird, because it presented like almost like bonking, like where it's like a little bit lightheaded. I'm like, I know I'm not behind on calories right now, but it kind of gives me that sensation like I am.
Mhm.
But it's like if JJ, who is in second place, brought me back, and I've been running now, say I ran like some 5:15s or 5:20s when I'm trying to run sub 5 minute pace on those miles, all of a sudden that becomes a whole different mental battle of getting excited about the rest of the race, where you can start to think, and this is why it's funny how just the title of your book will always pop in my head, Run the Mile That You're In, right? It's such a great title. That's all you need to know.
I
Run the
didn't
mile
think
that you're
that.
in.
I can't take credit for it. I think Dina Castor is the one who'd say that all the time.
It's a great, I mean, honestly, that's such a great thing to think about it because you so can have the capacity to either be thinking behind you, thinking in front of you. I think just being where you're at in a race like the marathon is like such an important thing.
You
So
know what I think is super important that you mentioned that you did? Because like you said, like you could have just started around like 5:15s and then you like I think it's important to try to keep the marathon going well as long as possible. Like wait
totally.
to throw in audibles until it's absolutely necessary, you know? Because dude, you're think about how different your day would have gone if you're like, dude, I'm feeling a little lightheaded. I'm just gonna back off for like the next 5K or 10K or slow things down. Like, dude, you wouldn't have run the same time, I guarantee it, right? So I
Yeah,
think that a good move. It's like, dude, like let's wait on those 5:15s until they're absolutely necessary. Because once you change your pace around, it's very difficult to like get back up to speed unless you have some aid on the course, like a downhill, or you're just really carb depleted and you get in a whole bunch of calories. But that's not likely either, you know. So I think something really important for marathoners to think about is like, let's wait to change the pace up, call audibles until it's critical timing.
totally. Yeah, and I think again, like being objective about it too, of like being able to kind of step back from the sensation you're having if things do feel odd for a little bit, and like knowing that things can feel a little bit off for a little while and come back down and settle, right? Like you're not just going to have, it's unlikely you're just going to have this like completely static amazing feeling your whole way through. And there's a point in the race where I haven't really gone that deep yet, so it did catch me off guard for a second. But I think at that point it's like I'm not here to run 5:15 pace at this race. Like I knew objectively, like I will just like step off the course if I'm just having a really rough day because my fitness is better than that, right? So like I'm not here to just have like a suffer fest out here for no reason. So I kind of knew I'm not willing to do that with the pace anyways. But then also just being like, I'm not behind on calories. Like I'm having a weird sensation, but like I had a bottle coming up. It's like, get your bottle, keep drinking your calories. Like, that, you have experience with this, if you're taking the calories, like it'll keep your body feeling good. And that was my main concern is like, I know that my body's not depleted of calories, but I want it to like know that we're going to continue to feed throughout this process. So I don't get in some like psychological thing where my body's like thinking we're in like a difficult situation when we're not.
So did you feel like you're able to at some point like disassociate with that sensation, you know? Because I know like I've always said like the more you focus on a sensation, the more you're aware of it, the more you're going to experience it, the stronger it's going to become, it's just going to grow, you know? So were you trying to disassociate to it, or was there like when did it dissipate and how did it dissipate?
So, I think the biggest risk of that sensation was to freak out about it, for it to become something that I was afraid, like, uh-oh, what if this race starts to spiral? Because I've definitely had those races. I think in trail racing, especially, like, you get more volatile effort levels, right? Because you're going up hills and down hills. I've had races where, and on the bike as well, where like you do just explode, and it's like you go from having a great day to a not so great day very quickly. Um, so I think that it gave me it almost like caused my head to go there for a second, like this oh no feeling, like, oh, this is not the day, like things are about to go poorly. And I think it was just like calming that down. Like, no, that's not what's happening. Right. So I think that was the biggest threat, was just like having my mind get tangled up in it. And then once I was able to relax, then I think it just like focus back on the things that you're doing, right? Like just your breathing, coming back to your breathing again, like the external things like taking in a bottle, like just trying to be relaxed as possible. And I think like focusing on the things that you can do, right? And I think, and this is like another like meditative thing, where if you're with your breath, you don't, if you're thinking about your breath and your in breath and your out breath, you don't have the capacity to think about other things. And so I think sometimes it's like to just get out of your own head and just check back in with those, some simple cue like that. And that could be like the rhythm of your stride, that could be all sorts of things. And I think that's something that should be maybe a tool that you have ready to go for the race. Like, what things allow me to kind of get back in my body and back in a rhythm if I feel like I start to get in my head a bit. And then again, like if it didn't go away, like I would have had to do something about it, but it did go away. It did normalize.
And all this was happening like inside your mind because you're by yourself out there, you know. But I think about like other people who have people to run with, and like something I'll do, like if I'm not feeling good, if I'm on a run with Mitch deep in the forest and something's going off, I'll just start talking to him about something else, like completely unrelated, you know. So I'm not
Hmm.
necessarily giving words to what's going on, because I know if I start talking about it a ton, then I'm just gonna start focusing on it more. It's gonna start bothering more and put me in a bad mood. I'm gonna be all pissed off in like 5 minutes, you know. But if I just like start like telling Mitch a story about something funny, or just talking to him or whatever, like having someone else out there to just like take your mind off it can also be helpful strategy if you have other people around too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think it does depend on what's going on too. Like, I think there's a time to like in that moment, it's like it was kind of just a sensation that I had that would pass, right? But sometimes your body is giving you feedback that maybe you do need to pay attention to. So I think like knowing what things to not necessarily be like afraid to give something attention as well. Like there might be things that you need to give attention to. But I think knowing what those are. And so like so this one where it's like objectively I kind of know that it's not something based in any sort of like fact, right? Like I know that I'm not depleted. I know that I shouldn't be bonking at this point. I know I haven't been running that hard, so it's like this will continue on and will probably subside.
Have you experienced this sensation before in training or something similar?
I felt it. I think also I did this half marathon trail race up in San Francisco, like right after you started coaching me. And that one was another one where it was like a very early start. And then we also had to get bussed out to the start line. Like it was another like point to point race. And it was like freezing cold and windy. And we had to get bussed out there. And we are just like hanging out there for like an hour in the dark before the race. Um, and I think that those are just, it's again, it's like messing with like sort of like your biological clock and like just your body's cold. Like I think it causes your body a bit of stress that it's not used to. So in that race, it was the same thing. It was like cold and windy. I remember we like took off really hard up this first climb, and and it was just like in the first part of that race, my body just didn't feel didn't like felt kind of off. But same thing, like I didn't have the best race that day, but like it was fine. Like it did turn out okay. Like my body didn't bonk on me or anything.
Yeah, because it's always good to remind yourself if you have had something similar before of those experiences. Be like, I remember I had this happen before, and this is how it plays out. You know, it's a little easier to walk yourself through those things if you've been there before.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
So keep going, keep going through the race. Tell me about your exertion level and what you do, if anything different.
Yeah, so then I think after that, there's a point that was pretty funny, where like the course kind of was like going through some neighborhoods for a lot of the first half of the race, and then it kind of started to get onto some like bigger open highway type roads. And there's another, so we hit like a open highway part, and I think it was like a little bit uphill, and you were off on like the sidewalk, like pretty far on the other side of the street. But
Remember,
then
I
your
was
face,
going on the freeway. I thought I was gonna have to go on the freeway.
oh yeah, yeah, because we did make a left turn onto like some road,
Yeah.
and it looked like it was about to get on freeway.
Like, oh man, my ride might be over. I might never see Chatty.
But then, so then you're FaceTiming our parents on the phone, and so you're kind of like relaying some stuff to me, and that was the point. There's several points where I was like laughing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to like this is messing with my breathing. I need to just relax." And I think I was telling you it's funny. I was like, I felt like I was in a coma where I can hear you, but I can't really like talk back to you. So that was just a funny, it was just such a fun experience, having you out on the bike with me. So that brought like a lightness to the race that I thought was also another good aspect of like your first marathon experience. Which I think record like more amateur level runners can also utilize that as well. Where it's just like somehow, even if you like say a joke to somebody while you're running right in the first part of the race, like bringing some lightness to it, I think is a real positive
Or
thing.
if you have friends coming out and watching you, like get them, spread them out on the course, dude, because it can be like really, really, it's crazy how helpful it can be just to see a familiar face out there, you know?
For
So
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but it's almost like yeah, it checks you back into like your normal life a little bit rather than like getting so wrapped up in the performance side of it, and stressing. So anyway, so yeah, you FaceTime with our parents, and then like I think mom's funny. I think she wanted to know how far away second place was, and then I think afterwards she was like, "I was so nervous that you were so far in the front." It's like I don't know why. And Mimi did the same thing. Mimi was like, "How much did you win by?" It's like, why do you care how much I won by?
you know what's funny? Jasmine had her first track meet this last Saturday, and her very first track race ever. She ran the 400 meters up here in the dome at NAU,
Uh-huh.
and dude, I told her I was like, I'll give you. I thought she could maybe run 75, which is pretty good for like ninth grade girl,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, I'll give you $100 if you break 70. So she goes out and there's a bunch of heats, she's in like heat 8 of 11 or something like that. But she just freaking lights up her heat, dude. Out of nowhere, she just crushes it. Runs like 69 low or whatever, got $100.
Oh,
The first thing is that she asked me, she's like, how close was the second place person behind me? I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't even looking at them. Who cares?
that's so funny, man. I think it just like when you've been doing it for a while, you're like so aware of the greater context of how many amazing runners there are. Like, why does it make a big difference? Like, who happened to be in the race with me, you know?
How much you won by? You want to know how much better you are than everyone else? Why does that matter?
Yeah, I know that it something about it makes me feel weird. I actually didn't answer Mimi. I was like, nah.
I
Sorry,
think
I'm not gonna.
she asked me. I was on the phone with her, and she asked me, and I told her I didn't know. I was like, I have no idea. I still don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's like I don't know. Well, go look up the results if you care that much.
You could have told her whatever you wanted. You should have been like, "Oh, I think he was like a good hour behind me."
I should have just made something up. He was like 5 seconds, like he caught up to me, and then we were like back and forth.
They start throwing punches at me in the last 100.
Oh man, yeah. So anyway, so that was I think like mile 8-ish or so, and then so I remember before halfway it was again kind of like big open roads. So that was the point where like it was the first time where like I started to feel some wind and I started thinking like, oh yeah, okay, I could see where this now would be nice to be in a group here and get a little bit of shelter. Um, but
Remember
yeah,
that it was like when the sun came up and that wind kicked.
yeah, yeah, that seems to be the way it always is, right? It's like the sun comes up and you get that transition with the cold and the heat, and it causes a little bit of wind and gusts. But yeah, like it was pretty smooth. Like I think the course started to flatten out, and I was just started checking on my watch a little bit more to just like see where the pace was at. We were floating around like 5 minute to like 5:05 pace on the flatter sections. So yeah, we came through half, and it's funny because since I didn't get my watch started at the start line, I didn't get like a split for halfway, but I think it was like
Yeah. You asked me what it was. I was like, I have no idea.
yeah, you had like your stopwatch, right? Like your big one. Yeah.
Of course.
Which I felt bad because I was like, I shouldn't need you to. It's just funny that they didn't have a clock there and I didn't have the time on there. So it's fine. I mean, it was like I was just curious.
That's like the main one that you're curious about.
Yeah. Which it was like just over 105. It's like 105.03 or something. So, and I felt good there. I was like, I still felt like, okay, like, I didn't, I still wanted it to be like a good last like 6 miles. So I was like, I'm just going to stay between like five flat, 505 through 20, and then we'll see where things go from there.
Okay,
Um,
quick interjection.
yeah.
If I were, I would be as bold to say if you had a group that you were in, you run the second half in same time you're in the first half in, you know? Like I think that's where that's where having company makes the biggest difference, right?
Yeah.
Which is why like yeah, that second half just not having people around you dude, is very difficult to just be competing against yourself out there for that back half. But just my opinion.
Yeah, but I think you start doing like mental stuff as well, right? Because it's like if I'm running, say if I'm trying to win that race and I'm being competitive with people in that moment, it's like by slowing down, I'm letting that goal run away from me. So I'm gonna be more engaged with the goal. Whereas like times, I think if you're running for a specific time, I think it can be hard in the back half of a marathon to like keep it honest the whole way through, where you have to like not let yourself give away some of that because I think it becomes easier. Like, well, I'd still be happy if it was 30 seconds slower, 40 seconds slower, a minute slower. Um, so yeah, but that said, I felt like, if I'm running still five flat to 5:05 on the flatter section of the course, like that's still moving along. And if I always can pick it up a little bit on the back on like the last 6 miles. So yeah, I think we're just like pretty steady there. And as we hit halfway, like it then now the last half of the marathon is the half marathon course and then the 10K and then the 5K. So starting to see like the back people in those races.
This was,
Which
by the way, the highlight of my biking experience next to on the Boston Marathon was as we would catch people, and it was the slowest people who had the greatest comments, dude. I loved hearing them talk about you. You run by, I heard so many F bombs, dude. Hundreds of F bombs, dude. They were just like, this guy's not even real right now. Like this guy. So I won't repeat it because it's mostly explicit, and this is not an explicit podcast. It
yeah, which to be honest, that's like I think that's one of the things with like smaller racing and like, I'd experience this with like a lot of local mountain bike racing is like getting to bring a little bit of like elite level performance to people who don't get to be that close to it usually. And I think that's a fun thing where like they get to see that and maybe, yeah.
I mean, so they're running like as hard as they can, right? And you just come freaking flying by them, dude. That's what that would feel like to be doing something like me, like deadlifting as hard as I can, and then Thor being right next to me and just freaking just throwing 500 pounds like it's nothing, dude.
Which I guess my hope is like it's somewhat inspiring and not discouraging. Yeah, yeah.
It is. I'd be stoked, dude. I'd love to lift
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was, I mean, so that became something fun too. I think on the back half of that, when it's just a few people and it's not like huge crowds, it's like it's fun to now start to share the course with people again. Um, but yeah, so like I felt like through from like say halfway towards like heading towards 20, it did I felt like it just felt smooth. It felt pretty controlled. Like it was getting harder, but it still wasn't super hard, you know? Like I didn't feel like I was working, like I didn't feel like my heart rate was that elevated. It still felt very sustainable.
Were you
Um
were you wearing a watch that had heart rate data on it?
yeah, but just my wrist heart rate. It did look like somewhat accurate data after the fact because it seems like it just hit or miss depending on how it responds on certain days. But yeah, it was like just like high 160s for a lot of the back half of the race. But
What
again, yeah, kind of a grain of salt. What's that?
about the first half?
That's where I think it was not accurate. Yeah, I think when it's cold, it's not accurate because I think there was points where, if I'm remembering it right, there's points that were like really high and then really low, and then it like leveled out on the back half of the race.
That's something to point out for those people who heavily rely on heart rate during race for data. It's like if you're just going off wrist heart rate. I mean, I haven't tried out the Primo watches out there, but I don't think you can trust that data super well. If it's a chest strap, that's a different story. I think that's still the gold standard, but I don't know, dude. I'm hoping the wrist data or technology does come around to where you could really trust the heart rate data, because that would be really insightful and helpful piece of information to be looking at. But I mean, at the elite level, I don't know. I don't hear about anyone even looking at it when they're running marathons because it's just not accurate. No one wants to wear a chest strap during. I could be wrong. There might be
Yeah,
elites out there doing that, but not that I'm aware of.
yeah. I think by the time you're like an elite and you're again like familiar with the way efforts feel, I feel like at that point, maybe in training it still is useful to have that information, but I feel like it could be another distraction, right? Where it's like another metric that's in your head kind of that could either be beneficial or non-beneficial.
Plus,
But yeah,
heart rate is linked to like how good you're feeling. Like, do you ever notice how when you're fresh, you can get your heart rate higher and
yeah,
sustain a rate? So you might be able to sustain a heart rate in a race that you can't even get close to sustaining in training. So yeah,
totally.
you're right. You got to be careful with that piece.
Yeah. And so yeah, I would say do not use wrist heart rate as like a guidance metric for your racing. I think it's just so volatile and most of the time inaccurate. Like I think it's good to look at it afterwards and kind of see if it seemed like it was accurate or not. But definitely I wouldn't let it guide your racing prescription. And then even the chest strap, like much more accurate. But I would say if you get some volatility to it and it looks like it's erratic, then throw it out. Like, do not let that get in your mind. Because I think, again, sometimes, like my Garmin, sometimes will give me like a performance thing, right? It always does it like after the first mile of my workout. It's like, you're in a -4 performance state. And I'm like,
Now,
how do I turn this off? I don't want that in my head, you know?
one of my athletes, who's a run free athlete, Bosch. He's an Ethiopian guy that lives in Gunnison by Crested Butte. Great dude, works out with Sarah sometimes. But he said on his Instagram, he took a picture of his watch saying something bad, negative, and he's like, "My watch is my biggest critic and my biggest."
It's so true. I've had some great workouts of some really bad performance states, so also don't let that get in your head.
I know, and that's the thing too. Like, I'm not sponsored by any of these wearable companies, and like I'm glad that I'm not, because like even like Whoop, like their data stuff, I don't know. Like I just tried out the newest thing and it was not accurate at all for me. Like not even close. Like if I was using it as a training thing that was guiding my training, it would get me in so many problems. So I think we got to be careful when it comes to technology and be like, dude, just go back to like being in touch with your body and how it's feeling. Like always, just that's your number one metric point you want to look at.
Yeah, I think that none of those should supersede that, you know? I think that those things, like all the metrics that we have, I think we got to tie them all together and try to use them to like inform what we're doing. But I think if you're ever not listening to your body, like you're missing a huge component because your body does signal. And I think it's also like Joe talked about this on our nutrition podcast, where it's like when you're first getting into, say, like an intuitive style of eating, like you might not be picking up on all the cues because you're disconnected. You haven't been paying attention, right? So like you don't know how to interpret that information. So I feel like we need to stop overriding that. So I think it's like today, like start immediately trying to pay attention to your body, connect with it, and then just like recognizing like how did the workout go? How did my body feel? What were some things that were going on there? And starting to like build almost this like catalog of experience where you can recognize how your body feels when it's feeling good and when it's ready to go, when it's not ready to go. And that takes a long time. You know, it's like the same thing as just training your body to perform better. It takes time for your mind body connection to get more in sync.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important for athletes to share that with their coaches too, you know? Like for me, the hardest athletes to coach are the ones who just write in their splits and they say nothing about how they felt. Like to
Yeah.
me, especially if I'm not there and I can't read the effort level they were putting out, dude, like I'm like, okay, you did this workout, great, but was it a stretch? Like, were you freaking racing it to hit these times? Or were you just floating along and felt easy and feel great? Because you're gonna have very different outcomes coming out of that. And the next workout might even be tweaked based on the effort level you put out, you know? And even on easy runs, if you're like, dude, I was wasted today, so tired, like that's a lot more helpful than knowing what pace you ran on your easy days, you know? So just a
For
reminder,
sure.
especially to our athletes, like make sure you're communicating feeling more than anything else to your coaches so that they can guide you well.
Totally. And that also includes out things outside of running too, right? Like sometimes I just have like enough like a to again give some like value to our emotional state. Sometimes it's the running, maybe it's fatigue, but sometimes I just have like a really draining day for whatever reason for stuff outside of running. And I think for our athletes that work full-time jobs, have families, have like overall a lot of stuff on their plate, like you got to take that stuff into consideration as well. Because that stuff, it's like your body is taking all that in. It's not like it's portioned it off into different, capacities.
Totally. And it's not a big deal to like push a workout or miss a day here and there. Like I was
For
reading this
sure.
interesting thing about Dave Scott, who was like the man in triathlon back in the day, you know, won the Ironman championships a couple times. And he started doing super well when he started having to miss training because he had these like social obligations and different sponsor things. So he started missing more days and he started doing better and better, dude. So sometimes you just like you need more rest than you think, you know, and missing a few days here and there can actually, turn out to be a blessing in disguise.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think more often than not, like looking back at my career trying to do a bunch of different endurance sports, probably like overtrained like for a lot of it, just thinking that I needed to just keep increase. Like we put so much thought into the effort that we're putting out in our workouts and like that stimulus. And it's something that like you hear a lot, but I think we still don't completely absorb of like, if you're not recovering, you're not improving, right? So it's like there's no point in continuing to push the stimulus up if you're not recovering from your current workload.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between a young athlete and a seasoned athlete, right? Is they realize that they know and they can feel their body and be like, no, there's nothing else I can do today that's gonna help me get better. Like my body just needs to recover, needs to absorb this training load better, you know? Whereas like the young guys just like, follow the schedule, let's finish said mile, and it
Yeah.
might be exactly like this. Like, woo, dude, that's a way to get yourself not very good results and broken real quick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like wisdom, but really what it is, it's just having gone through so much frustration of like beating the crap out of yourself and then getting worse. And you're like, I'm just not going to do that anymore. Like that just didn't, it was just super frustrating.
Just doesn't work. Why would you do something that doesn't work?
Totally. Yeah. 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 So anyway, so back to the marathon. Yeah. So we're like working well through, say, 17 miles. So I think the intervals is usually every 5K in like major marathons, right? Is where like your bottles are at, right? Right.
Yep.
So kind of different. It was a little bit. It was just based on like where the aid stations were in Mesa, so they were like a little bit more sporadic. So I think the last bottles, like there was a bottle, I think around halfway, so at 13 miles. Um, and this was something that like we didn't get this information.
Your splits to get the bottle, dude.
Wait, say that again.
We're too busy trying to get your splits to get that
Oh
bottle.
yeah, yeah. No, I did get that bottle because it was before the half. I think it was at
That's
mile
why we
13.
missed your split, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Um, but anyways, so this was something that we didn't necessarily train because I didn't have that information like where bottles were going to be on the course. So like typically you would try to replicate that in your training more. Like if you know when you're going to be able to take certain nutrition, obviously you want to train things as best you can. So we're kind of going on the fly in terms of like when I was getting access to bottles on the course, which first of all, like it's just great to get access to the bottles when you're doing your first marathon. So uh, I massively appreciated that to even have that capacity. But so got my bottle at 13, then last bottles were at 17, 19, and 22. So I got the bottle at 17, still feeling really good. And then this is where I start to make some critical mistakes. So I think at that point in the race, and I've done this before where it's like you're kind of evaluating your nutrition, how you feel, and like what you need to take on board. And I think what I should have done is still just take on that bottle at 19 and get it. But granted, now we're intersecting these other races. So now we're on the course with, so by mile 19, now we're on the course with a half marathon. I guess at that point, still just half marathon people, but then there's going to be 10K people. So it's just getting more densely crowded around the aid stations as well. And it was just like there's a bottle, there's essentially like a table with bottles and then like the normal aid station. So it's getting crowded around where the bottles are set up as well. So at 19, I'm trying to think if I like remember even seeing the bottle there. It did sneak up on me. And I think I probably could have made a concerted effort to get over there and like, try to find where my bottle is and snag it. But I think at that point, like I was starting to get like a little bit of the stress of like intersecting with the other crowd or of the crowd of people. And I like had just gotten my bottle at 17 and I had taken that one down. And I think I made that one pretty dense. So I was like, I think I can bypass bottle at 19, right? I'm like, I have a gel in the pocket too. I was like, I think I'm just good until 22. Like, I'm just gonna roll this. Which this is probably where you would have been like, what are you doing?
I'll pretend you didn't say any of that, Tree Dog.
So still feeling good though. So through 19, still feeling good. I remember coming through 20, and I think I forget if I checked my pace, but like still feeling good about where I was at mile 20 and the way things were feeling.
Still like 210 pace, right? Like mid, like 210 mid to low even still, right?
Yeah, somewhere between like 210, 211, I think, by mile 20. And then it was really, I think, between like mile 20 and 21 where like it's hard to describe. It wasn't something I'm super familiar with, where usually like you start to really feel the effort. I felt like it was just like the pace was slowing down and it felt like I still had the capacity to keep working hard, but like I just couldn't keep the pace high enough, right? And it's
Like
just
you're
getting crazy.
like pushing the gas but not getting all the acceleration out of the car, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. I think that like I had prior to that coming through 20, I kind of had this sensation like I was going to kind of step on the gas at some point, whereas like we've been essentially biding our time for the whole first 20 miles, which, in my first marathon, I wanted to hit 20 miles and not fall apart. So I kind of, people always say that, right? Like the marathon starts at mile 20. Which that's like true and not true. I feel like you're working before mile 20, so it's not like you're jogging there.
Not easy through 20. Like I felt like I was working in early. I mean, Chicago one year, I felt like I was working at 5 miles in.
Gosh.
I was running a 5 mile race, dude.
You're like, it's gonna be a long one.
But that's what's crazy is like every experience is so different, right? I've had that experience. I've also had the experience where freaking felt like I was at the trials. If you've never seen the 2007 Olympic trials, you should check it out. It's a great race. But in that race, dude, I felt better the faster I went. Like the best I felt was the last mile. It felt
Yeah.
great. you know?
Which that's kind of how I felt like I was going to go. Like I kind of felt like, dude, this is gonna be fun to like really step on the gas here and like see what we got left in the tank. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like it still didn't feel like I didn't bonk. Like I have bonked tremendously hard on some of the long bike racing I've done, where like you feel like just so gassed. I think even in the marathon, if you've done a good job fueling beforehand and you are taking on nutrition during, it's like you don't go full bonk, but you do like lose that ability to maximize your performance on the day. So it's like my time's slipping to like 5:15 pace instead of being still on that like five flat, right? So it's like it doesn't feel like I'm falling apart, but definitely we're losing a little bit there. And then so like I hit mile 22 and I'm looking for that aid station. Like, okay, I'm really ready for a bottle now. And
Well,
it's now just,
you had a gel in your pocket too. I remember you taking a gel. What point was that?
that was late. That was too late. I should have taken it when I didn't
I'll
get,
take that gel earlier.
I think honestly, like it just started to get, I think I like started getting a little cloudy with the way that I was thinking at that point. Cause like now it's just like there's a lot of stress. So it's like,
Yeah.
and I hate when this happens. This has happened to me in a couple races where they have multiple races going on at the same time, but they don't divide the course at all. So now I'm kind of stressed watching like the motorcycle, like kind
I
of
was
pushing people out of the way.
I was
Yeah.
on the bike just watching this whole thing. Remember, I was like, "You are peace in the storm."
Yeah. So I think my mind starts to get a little bit more concerned about that. It's almost like this happened to me on Fiesta today, where there's a loose dog, and you're like, is this dog going to run at me? And it's like, I'm kind of now not checked in with what I'm doing. I'm worried about this potential bad thing that might happen. Uh, so just to say, I think that all just started to get a little bit stressful. So I'm not making the best decisions at that point in time. And I'm just kind of feeling like, okay, like I'm not bonking. I think I'm underestimating how much I still need that fuel at that point. I'm in some ways like thinking I can just get through now. I think I can take it all the way to the finish line. But after fact, I'm thinking I was going to go from 17 to 26 without anything on board. That was not a good plan. Like that's a critical part of the race in the last 9 miles.
Wouldn't it be cool if I could have pulled like in the Hunger Games, like if you have a benefactor, they'll
It's
like
like,
fly
pew, pew. Yeah,
a little bottle down to you.
that would have been amazing. Just floating next to me. That would have been great. That would have been a nice
I would
cue of like, I guess I should do this.
I would have done it if I could have, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think also like you're now navigating like sidewalks and stuff, right? Like you're dealing with your own challenges at this point in the race.
I was fully prepared to say goodbye till the end at any point. I was just grateful for every mile I got to be with you.
Yeah, I figured that as well. But it's also fun too, because like, yes, it's getting hectic. There's like this major crowds going on, but then there's people like cheering me on too. Like it was really fun as well. So it was,
All the F-bombs, dude.
yeah, I think there were still a lot of F-bombs going down. Um, but so at mile 22, I'm really looking for my bottle, but now it's super hectic. I didn't even see like the bottles at all at mile 22. So now I'm just like cruising through. And I think there's a point then when it kind of opened back up. And like, I think that was around like mile 24, 25. And it's just this long stretch. And now I'm like, can I see the finish? Like now I'm starting to think about, it would be great to finish this thing off. But the wheels are starting to come off. And so this is the only other time I've done this where I took a gel within like a mile to finish was at Leadville, where I on the bike when I bonked super hard and I was like staring at my stem. I was like, I might have to lock it in if I don't take a gel. Uh, so I popped that gel and I was like, okay, I just need to get to the finish line, which is at that point, it's like, I don't even like, you're probably not even getting any of that to your muscles, but it does like allow your body to release a little bit of glycogen, right?
Yeah, no, I think it does make a difference. I think it makes a huge difference. I think people way underestimate how many calories they could both take in and would be helpful in a marathon. Like, I think it's way more than they think, you know? That's why I'm always telling people, I'm like, pretty much like take in as much as your stomach can handle. And when your stomach's at the point can't handle it anymore, then you got to dilute it or just drink in more water, you know, get more fluids down. But dude, like sometimes Sarah, she'll be doing a workout, it'll be like 10K of volume, and she'll take in like 4 gels during the workout, dude. And like it will help her like in every
Yeah.
single rep, you know, and it's like the next rep will be better because she got a little hit of sugar. So that stuff is so important. I think people underestimate how critical it is because you're not craving it. That's the problem. This is when like intuitive eating could get you in trouble, you know?
Yeah,
Your
totally.
body's like shut down the stomach. It's like, okay, stomach closed. We're not taking anything else. We're putting all of our energy towards, you know, getting you to the finish line. But if you give it a little something and it's like, oh, I start feeling better now because I just took some sugar on board, you know? So like, I really do think the more you can train your gut to take in, the better off you're going to be in the marathon, especially in those later stages, you know. Luckily, you did a good job with like carb loading, which we talked about in the first episode, and fueling up and stuff. So you were okay. You were able to hold it together. But I think that last 5K could have been a lot different if you were like really taking in some more during the race, you know. But I mean, because really, like from my coach's eye, I was like, dude, he still looks really good at 23. Like you were
Yeah.
still looking great. Yeah, your splits were starting to slow down a little bit. You're starting to get more labored, but it's really when I noticed it the most with like the human eye was from 23 on. I was like, oh yeah, like he's got that like glucose is gone kind of look, you know. It's like, you know it when you see it because it's like this can't get your knees up as high, right? And
Yeah.
and it looks like your feet are getting glued to the ground, you know, like you
Yeah.
that kind of bounce and pop. So that was when I first started noticing that, and it, you know, it's right in line with what you're saying you were experiencing when you were running really low on glucose in that last bit.
Yeah. And that's where like if you know that you're low on glucose in a race like that, it's too like unfortunately you've already given it away, right? Like you can maybe salvage it a little bit, but like you can't wait until you're behind to try to do something about it. And that's where like so taking the gel at that point, like this is something that you know is well known at this point where it's like taking in like I think they in a study had guys even just take in like a drink mix and spit it out, so they're not even taking any on board, but it's like your body just getting that cue of like we're getting fuel coming in will release more glycogen. Essentially your body's like trying to protect you, right, by not letting you go super deep. So I think on that note it's like I forget where I was listening to this. Is I think on some ritual podcast where they're talking about how you know we can by numbers try to figure out like how much glycogen we can store in our bodies like pre-race, but I think it was actually the coach of Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Eden who are like these two Norwegian guys that are just slamming it in the Ironman right now and triathlon in general. But I think he was talking about like, but how much access you have to that like varies person to person. So like you may be able to on paper store a certain amount of glycogen. It doesn't mean that you're going to have access to all that glycogen during your race. That's going to be a personal thing.
Right.
And then also it's like the performance that you're getting out of it. I think it's like the lower your tank gets, the less performance you're getting out of that. It's like you get the most performance out of like that top level, like the more close to full that you are, like the more your body easily accesses it and utilizes it. So it's like
Yeah, you want
your best
full range, not like let it go down to yeah.
yeah. So like going to empty isn't going to be your best, the best way to get your ideal performance. So if you're working out your nutrition to that standard that you're like, I'm going to use all of my stored glycogen and then only take in enough to like fuel the rest of it, you're leaving a lot on the table, right? And I think that's kind of where I was at, where like I left a little bit on the table because I was starting to get into those reserves that like your body doesn't necessarily want to just like throw all of those out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do when you're in that state? When you're in that, dude, just get me to the finish line, just trying to make it. What kind of thoughts were you thinking? How do you hold it together when physically like that, like some very real things are happening in your body that are trying to slow you down?
Yeah, I mean, for one, that that period of time can start to feel like an eternity, right? Like I was looking for the finish line, but I can't see it because it's actually like around a little corner right at the end.
I felt the same way though too. I was like, we should be getting close to the finish line, but it didn't look close at all. It looked like way far away, dude. Like
Yeah,
straight, dude. They hit you with that long straight right at the end.
yeah, and that, I mean, that's definitely something that happens in a lot of races where like the last little bit can feel like a long ways. And that's where like I think it was a big goal of mine was to kind of get out of my head during the race and like really be present for the experience. And so at that point, it did, even though things were getting really hard, like it was cool having this like just like a whole bunch of people on my left side also finishing their races, like cheering and stuff. My head's like I had said in the previous episode, for some reason, like going Eric Little style, falling back into the sky. Uh, I very much still had this like empty mind sensation there, right? Whereas like I did feel like I did a good job of just like being like not critical about anything, right? So you're like not thinking about like, oh man, this is taking forever. Oh man, I can't believe I'm still not to the finish line or I can't see the finish line. It's like just totally letting go of any sort of judgment about the experience and just like just keep moving forward, right? Like I was kind of feeling almost like there's a tow line attached to me and the finish line is just like towing me in, right? It's like every step I'm a little bit closer and it doesn't really matter if it feels like a long time, like yeah, I will get there. So it's like you kind of just survive that time and you just like let yourself, or at least the way that I did, is I kind of just let myself go a little bit zen and trust my ability to like keep pushing, right? It's like you don't you don't necessarily have to let off the gas if you're like also letting off the pressure in your mind. Yeah,
I like what you said about kind of going zen in that last part. Because I think the mistake that I see people make when you can just watch the finish of marathons. When think about the people, if you've ever done this, watch the finish. You see some people just coming across, just look like they're just fighting themselves so tight, they're just like,
yeah,
like those people are never doing well. You'll never see someone win the New York City Marathon just like so tight, like you gotta stay relaxed and stay loose with the pain, which is so hard to do, and so I
yeah,
think what you're talking about is really important, like staying kind of zen, staying kind of flowy, just like not freaking out too, and just like letting your body do what it can do, and accepting whatever level, whatever pace that is at, without trying to just like, I'm gonna use my will on this and force this last mile to happen, So I think
yeah,
good job of like not fighting, but more just like flowing with it,
yeah. And that's a learning experience, right? Like that was my first time in that specific situation. And one of the things that I love about the way that Mitchell approaches, running form and that side of performance is like having cues. So I think that's where you can start to learn like what cues work well for you too, because you do just need your body. I think in the marathon, like you're saying, being relaxed is like tremendously helpful. So I think any way you can like keep yourself relaxed but moving forward well, like use figure out what that recipe is for you. And I think for me, I know that to get the most out of myself is in some degree to get out of my head because I think it's like stress, fear, all those things negatively impact my performance and I just know that from experience. So it's like by getting out of my head, by being kind of zen about it and just feeling like this suction towards the finish, I know like I trust that that's going to give me the most optimal result, So I think that's something that might be personal though. Maybe that works for you. Maybe it might be a different cue, something else. Um, like I know Sarah like counts backwards, right? To just kind of have her mind like focused on something else. But I think yeah, I think it's worth exploring for each person to kind of figure out a strategy.
Yeah, and so you got to figure that out in training, right? And you don't
Yeah.
necessarily got, I mean, you can also practice it in the race. That's the best place to practice it. That's why, like, we're talking about Boston. It's like, let's go learn some more, learn more
Yeah.
about Boston, learn more about racing a marathon, like just learn on as much as we can, just be a student out there. But the marathon course is the perfect place to practice because we really, I mean, we can't have you do a 26-mile threshold in training and just put you back in that spot. Like, there's only one time we can go into that spot. So I think that's something to remember. Something I was mentioning to Rory in his long run yesterday. I was like, do not let this moment of suffering pass you without you learning from it. Like, we
Yeah.
came to learn. And so often we want to just get out of those moments. Like, oh, this sucks. I can't wait for it to be over. And that's the perfect time to just remind yourself, be like, oh, hold on a second. Like, this is a golden opportunity that I don't get very often to learn how to get myself through this suffering as well as I possibly can. Like, let me try some things out. Let's not miss this time to experiment because it's a brief little window that we get. You want to learn as much as humanly possible when you find yourself at mile 25 of a marathon because you can't go there very often. So I think that's really important to see the value in the suffering, being like, dude, this is the perfect opportunity for me to learn how to do this. Like, I can't even do this in training. The race is the only time that I can really be here learning this. So I think that's critical. Like, make the most of the suffering. Don't wish it away. Like, it's suffering is a great teacher, and it will teach you how to get through it well if you're wanting to learn. If you're just wanting to run from the suffering, it's going to suck every time you go there. You're not going to like it. But if you go to that suffering and be like, all right, teach me how to get through this, it's going to show you some things. You're going to learn some things about yourself. And next time you're back in that position, you're going to be better off for it. You're going to have some new tools, some new keys that you can pull on that you didn't have before. So, dude, I'm proud of how you went through the first one. Like, you did. That was not an easy run. Like, it's easy to
Yeah.
look at the course and say, oh, it's down, whatever, dude. Running by yourself hard for 26 miles for anyone is not an easy task. So I mean, that alone was huge. But like, hearing you talk about like that weird thing with the sun coming up and your energy levels being weird, like coaching yourself through those things, I think speaks a lot to like your maturity as an athlete and how far you've come in that category. And just the whole thing, like, you did the whole thing really well, minus you might have missed a bottle and a gel or two. But
Lessons learned.
I mean, that's a pretty light lesson. Like,
Yeah. It's an
people,
easy fix, right?
yeah, a lot of people's first marathon experience, it's like a heavy learning curve on the first one. Like, it can be a big wave that picks you up and throws you down the bottom of the ocean and tumbles you around a little bit. But I feel like you really had a nice positive experience with it, largely because of how well you handled things mentally. So I feel like we learned a lot both from the experience, but also in the preparation too. That's going to help you not just for Boston, but down the line and just in life in general, which is why we do this. One of the reasons why we run marathons is to learn something about ourselves. And I think you learned a lot about yourself out there in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think what you said about that is so critical to not avoid the suffering. And like, it's crazy just changing the way that you view something like suffering, your viewpoint about it. I think so much of me has been about learning that it's like a lot of suffering comes from distraction or avoidance, right? Trying to avoid something that's present. Where it's like when you actually just acknowledge it and you engage with it, can actually lead you to a whole bunch of freedom and a whole bunch of positive things as well. And I think that's where it's like our running, and why I think it's good to think on a larger scale of what your running means to you in your own like personal life and journey and development is, for me, that's been such a huge component, is to, again, like we were talking about at the beginning, engage with like reality, right? And like the suffering is like this exploration of like what it means to run a marathon and getting the most out of yourself and kind of having that experience. And I think when you take your thought about what you want it to be and you kind of like hold it loosely, it can bring a whole bunch of excitement and fun to it, to use the whole experience as an exploration of like, let's go learn. And I think for me that's been a huge thing of like, I am a learner. That's been something, a quality that I have adopted with myself. Um, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, yeah, that's been so this was something I adopted a long time ago of like I always have the capacity to learn. I know that if I engage with it, like I can learn new skills and new things. And it's like when you have when you have that mindset towards something like running, it's like the whole process becomes meaningful because it's like I always have the ability for it to be a positive outcome, even if the race doesn't necessarily go on paper the way that I wanted it to. And that's difficult. Like you said, like suffering is the greatest teacher. Like there's this film called Stutz, and this guy talks about on a personal level, like the part of us that is like critical of ourselves and maybe that we like have to battle with. He calls that part X, and it's actually the part that like moves us forward in personal development. So without suffering, I don't think we have development. And so to not avoid it, to engage with it, and in the context of racing, engage with it, I think is a really fun thing to do. And if you can look at it through a positive lens, where when you get to the suffering, it's like time to get to work. Like this is what we came here for. Man, that can totally change your experience of it.
And dude, I think here's the thing. I feel like we all secretly enjoy suffering, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I mean, when I say us all, I mean like runners. Like that's why one of the things that draws us to this sport is we like to push ourselves. We like to put ourselves in the suffering. But then at the same time, sometimes we lose that insight and we're like, oh, like I kind of forgot that I actually like suffering. This is actually something like, dude, I used to crave I didn't like the beginning parts of races because I like to get to the point when it started to hurt. That was my
Yeah.
favorite part. So like sometimes I'd like wish away the beginning stages of the race. I was like, man, I can't wait till we like really start working here, really start getting after it. But I think deep down inside, if we allow ourselves, if we're not resistant of suffering and we're wanting to, like you said, learn and grow through our suffering, then we'll actually want to go into that spot and we'll actually value it and want to hang out there and like go back there over and over again. It doesn't have to be this like big daunting enemy that we're fighting. It's rather like you're saying, a new land that we're going to explore. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
different. Sensations aren't they don't feel the same as when you're feeling good, but it's just a different kind of sensation, not necessarily quote unquote bad or good. It's different, and you got to learn how to navigate those tricky waters.
Yeah. Do you know what I think you're absolutely right. I think that if you were a runner, you probably enjoy suffering more than you think you do. And I think that what it actually is, why we don't enjoy suffering, is that it's actually like fear and anxiety around the suffering because we have these like ideas about what we want the performance to be and like our goals, what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's actually the fear and anxiety around losing that in the moment where you're grappling with the discomfort and that discomfort, like feeling like it's taking away that performance that you really want, right? So you don't get to like engage with the suffering in like a positive exploratory way, right? Where it's like fun to go and attack it, right? To like have this battle where it's like you feel like something's being taken away from you and it can become like so anxiety ridden. And for me, when I had those moments, I was just talking to an athlete how sometimes I would have this thought of like, why am I still doing this? Like, why am I trying? Like, I'm not a good runner. Like, those thoughts can creep in, right? And it's like, obviously, if those are the thoughts you're having, you're not enjoying that aspect of engaging with the suffering part. And I think that's why, like, we can think about times when we were younger where, like, the suffering didn't seem that bad. I think the suffering doesn't seem that bad when it's really just the suffering. It's just your body giving you those things. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do that it's funny, I felt like I didn't get to do completely during that race was to get to the suffering and instead of being really wrapped in my like thoughts around it, right? Like get into these like larger thoughts about my life and my pursuit of my running and whatnot, to like just be observant of what the suffering is like, and actually just like look at it like it's something that I'm just getting to check out, right? And I think when you engage with it that way, it's really not that scary.
Yeah, yeah, dude, that's well said, dude. That was beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you just can't resist it, right? If you resist the suffering, then you can't explore something you don't want to see. You know,
Yeah,
you don't want to be there, you can't explore it. You don't want to explore it. You just want to close your eyes and get through it as quick as you can. You totally miss it. And that's why it's easier if you can let go of the numbers, you know? It's like,
yeah,
dude, when I ran my fastest marathon in London, 2:06, there was a point in that race where a big storm came down, like mile like 22 or something. I don't remember the exact point. And I remember I had this thought in my head. I was like, well, time doesn't matter anymore because we just started running a lot slower than we were running. Like the pace just totally dropped off, right? And I was like, dang, dude, we're on schedule for a quick one. But I was like, but let me just forget about that. It's not about time anymore today. We're just going to probably go slow till the end. But I was in the mix, right? I was up with the leaders. I was like, let me take a swing at trying to win this thing. Like that's what I can focus on now. So it allowed me to like let go of the numbers. And then, man, I could really suffer deep in that race. Like that was probably the most I've gotten out of myself in any race I've ever done before. Like I came across the finish line of that race feeling like I was like one step from death. Like I was
yeah,
real, but I could only go there because I had let go. I wasn't like staring at my watch, being like, dude, I just lost 3 seconds that mile. Like, dude, I was just like in the suffering cave, just exploring it, just checking everything out, dude. I was like going through it and I was like, oh, we're in here, dude. I didn't even know I ran past like Buckingham Palace or the Eye of London or any, I didn't see any of that, dude. It was just like tunnel vision because I was in the pain cave, but I was happy to
yeah,
be because I wasn't like you well said, I wasn't worried about what I was losing, I
yeah,
wasn't afraid of it. I was like wanting to be there, wanting to be in that moment. So yeah, dude,
yeah.
it's gonna be fun for you to go back in not too long too.
I know, it'll be fun. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, right? Like we are run free, right? Like that's kind of a huge aim of what we want to bring to people's running is to run with freedom. And man, I think that's such an interesting thing that for me is been something that I've been working on a lot, and um, I think that's something that's been an important component for you. But it's an interesting thing where it's like you have to kind of have this level of humility to let go of your will and all of that, which I think people are really afraid to do. I think we have this feeling like we have to hold on to our will. Like think about how popular like David Goggins is, and I feel like sometimes I grapple with the way that he is a little bit because I think people want to make things super black and white, like just make your will happen in reality. It's just like force your will upon the world. But it's an interesting thing to me that like there's this aspect of letting go of your will. Like you still work hard, you still try to pursue achievement, but it's like ultimately there's a crazy freedom that happens when you kind of let go of your will a little bit and you just let things, it's like you get in the river and let it, you flow with the river rather than swimming upstream against it.
Yeah, because then you're excited about what's happening because you're not in control anymore, right? You're just
Yeah,
like, this is fun. I'm on a ride like right now. Let me check all this stuff out.
yeah,
Like that's the best way to go through it. That's the most enjoyable way to go through. I've gone through it a lot of different ways, dude. That's definitely the most fun, like you said, when you can let go of things. And that is why we named it Run Free. That is like my mantra. That's what I've been going after my entire career. Like I had to start a business to be a professional runner. We're like self-employed or whatever because we used to have contracts with other sponsors. And so I had to come up with a business name, and I came up with the name Run Free. And
yep,
now I have Run Free training, because that's what I wanted the most, dude. I was like, going back kind of full circle to what I was talking about earlier in the podcast. Like I want to be that kid who's just playing, just out there playing, just having the best time. Like that's not just what I want for me, but like that's what I want for you in Boston. Dude, if I don't even care how fast you run in Boston, dude. I really don't. I don't like I if you came across that line and you were just pumped, you were like, dude, that was so freaking fun, dude. I love that. I would be so pumped. But if you
yeah,
got second place and you're all pissed off afterwards, then I'll be like, oh dang, dude, that sucks. Like we kind of missed it.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, like that's what I want for our listeners of this podcast. That's what I want for our athletes. That's what I want for myself. That's what I'm going after because there's so much life there, dude. It can be so fun. Running can be so fun, but it can also suck so bad. And I've done it both ways, and I want to do it the fun way, dude. I'm tired of doing it the sucky way where you're just burdened down by your own things that you put up, know, it's like we all have these imaginary numbers we're trying to hit, and it's our definition of success. And it doesn't need to be, it doesn't have to be that way, you know, if you can just.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. And oh man, I totally forget. I was so with you in that I totally forgot what I was gonna say on the other side of it.
You'll get tonight in bed, dude.
I know, isn't that disappointing? We're like, oh, that was that point that I was gonna make.
You can
Um,
you go back
oh,
and just throw it in there.
yeah, I'll get a little section of you just like nodding in agreement. I'll overlay it on there.
Just saying some stuff, and I'm just like,
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Is it's hard though. That's the thing, is I feel like that process, like don't expect that to be easy. Like this is a I think it's a great thing about it is it's a day in, day out process. Like I was saying, I got wrapped back up and like, oh, I want to have this great 10-mile threshold run at like 450 pace, right? Continually letting go of what I think things should be like or what I thought it would be like, and letting it be what it is, which is ultimately the best way of going about it, right? Like the best way for me to train is where my body's at now and give it the proper stimulus that it needs, not what I think it should be able to handle. And it's hard. It's like this continually letting go of my expectations around things and just like being willing to kind of flow with things. And I think we don't always give enough value to like if you can do things in a proper way continually over time and makes just steadily good decisions and steady incremental gains, man, that adds up. Like within a year, within 2 years, within 3 years, you'll start to see huge gains and you'll enjoy the process more too.
100%, dude. And isn't it great that we don't just learn these lessons one time? How boring would life be if you just learned and you just nailed it the first time? You're like, oh no, I learned that like 30 years ago, dude. I don't even have to work on that at all anymore. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm still like reminding myself of this stuff all the time, right? And I'm still trying to get better at this stuff myself, and I'm not even competing anymore, you know. But I do the same stupid crap with the numbers out in the gym all the time, dude. Just today, like an hour ago, I was, you know, pouting because I was only pulling 405 for 4 reps or whatever, you know. It's like stupid crap. Like just let all that stuff go. But I'm glad that, like, you know, you were saying you love to be a student, right? And I think that's the best way to go through life. Like who's the guy who talks about beginner's mind? Like, but I love that concept. If
Yeah,
you're always looking to grow, you're always the student looking to learn, you know. Like, 'cause it's just a fun way to go through life where you're trying to learn, you're trying to grow, but then you're not beating yourself up because you didn't master it on the first attempt. Because you're right, dude. You're 100. I'm glad you said that. Like, it is hard, and you are gonna lose this kind of mindset. I lose it all the time. But it's like meditation. It's like, yeah, you lose focus 100%. Like everyone loses focus every single meditation that they do, probably. But
yeah,
that the practice is bringing the mind back. That is the point, right?
yeah.
So like beat yourself up for not getting it the first time. Like the point is to recognize when you're off the mark and just bring yourself back, and just your job is just keep bringing yourself back to where you want to be in the mindset that you want to have, you know.
Totally, yeah. And I think like for me on a greater like life principle, it's like I can spend my time really focused on my own thoughts and opinions and ideas about things, or I can see things the way that they actually are out in the world, right? And I can kind of spend my time trying to be observant, trying to learn about it, trying to take on more and like take on new information and have like an openness and curiosity about things. And in this process of making that sort of like a process goal, a life thing for me, dude, life just becomes so much more fun. It becomes exciting because you're seeing things. It's like I don't need there to be certain outcomes. I don't need to have things be a certain way. And I think when you can let go of like certain needs that we have, man, all of a sudden life becomes so exciting and fun to just go explore. Like you're saying, like when we were kids, like we just want to go out and have fun and play and explore life. And I think we can do that with our running as well.
Totally, dude. And yeah, you're right. It's supposed to be fun. That's what makes it fun. It's like when me and Mitch are out in the forest doing our thing, like just exploring, we're just like, oh, dude, check this out. This tree's so cool. It's like split from this one. Like when you're going through life, just looking for things that are cool and fun, and you can just go through grateful. You can be out there running your race and find things to be grateful for. I remember Dad was always super big into that when he was coaching us, was like finding things to be grateful for. And I think that's a great way to go through life. But I think you can only do that if you're willing to, if you can go through life with like letting go of expectations.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess we should probably start to put a landing path to our convo on the race. So you finish the race, do not break the tape because there's a mishap at the finish line. What was going on there?
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't care about this. Claire was like all upset that I didn't get to break the tape at the finish. I was like, dude, I was just happy to be done.
That made me
Um,
upset too.
oh, Mimi would be upset. Don't tell Mimi about it. She would email the race. I don't know what happened. I mean, I have no idea. Like I just know that I came in and there was no tape, but it's like you could see the finish. That was all I really cared about. So yeah, like got through the finish and it's a
An
cool
official time.
moment. 2:12:47. Yeah. So, I think we were thinking like 2:10 was possible on the day. I think realistically, maybe if I had the bottles, maybe like being in that like 2:11 range probably was doable. I think going sub 2:11 might have been a tough ask, but nonetheless, like I was saying before, like when we're thinking about a time before you've really run an event, like you don't really know what that time means, right? Like it's all kind of a projection. I think after the fact, I was happy with that. I think like getting through it and knowing kind of what that experience is like to run that time on that course. I felt like that was a good first run, and I think I was happy with it and excited moving forward from here. Which again, I think if you can come out of your first marathon or even your just most recent marathon and feel like you have positive momentum and some good energy, then that's a big win.
Yep, 100%, dude. Well, it was a pleasure. I'm glad that I got to experience it with you, man. See so much of it from the bike. It's a beautiful run, dude. I'll never forget you running through the rising sun, dude. Just freaking bouncing along, looking like $1,000,000, dude. You made it look fun. I think I said that I was gonna like make a comeback when I was watching you
I
run.
did. Yeah, you did say that.
I had that, and it didn't feel like how you looked, dude.
That's funny.
So I don't know. I don't know if the comeback's gonna happen, but no, dude, I'm just proud of you, dude. Proud of that run, and looking forward to what the future holds for you. Now, what I like to do, dude, is a quick, rapid fire round from the Mesa Marathon. All right, you ready for this? So
Yeah.
just quick replies. What was the most noticeable thought, or I guess, what thought did you remember the most from on the starting line?
On the starting line, I think I was thinking, I hope I don't hit a pothole and like eat it super hard because it's like in the dark.
Yeah, it was not just kind of dark, dude. It was like all the way dark. There was no lights out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little concerned. I was like, I think I'm going to be able to see the ground, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay, what was the most negative thought you had during the race that you can remember?
I mean, probably when I got that weird sensation, I did have this feeling of like, oh no, like here we go. This might like my body's doing something funky right now. And I think you just get the sensation of going backwards. And that's just like it doesn't even have to be like in the like you don't have to it doesn't have to be like words or anything. You just have the sensation of it's almost like in your mind's eye, you imagining yourself getting passed and like just your body feeling terrible. But luckily that was pretty brief because it was, I mean, I think if I got that later in the race, it probably would have been harder and more problematic to deal with.
What bottle tasted the best?
Um, Probably the last one that I took. Which it was funny because I was actually super excited. I had these goo liquid gels. These are super good, by the way. If you're ever looking to dilute something into a bottle, these are great for it. My last two bottles had goo Coca-Cola liquid gels diluted into them, and they tasted like pretty much exactly like Coke. Which for any bike racer, like Coke is just money. So I was very much looking forward to those bottles, and I'm bummed that I didn't actually, that they're still, they're maybe, hopefully someone downed them or something. Probably got tossed.
Almost walking on the streets like, dude, these are freaking good.
In Boston, I'm gonna put one of those in one of my bottles just for the sake of finally getting one.
Yeah, you should put in the first one, dude. Make sure you get this.
Just make sure. Watch, it'll just be like chaos with all the elites, and I'll totally miss that bottle.
You can give Kipchoge a taste. Ask him what he thinks of it.
Like, it's better than that Martin stuff, huh?
I'll sell it to you if you want. I know I've noticed some pretty random things on the race course when I've raced marathons before. So, what is the most random thing that you remember noticing while you're racing?
Any racing or just the marathon?
Just Mesa.
Oh man. The funny thing is, I don't think you told this story on the first half of the podcast, but I think you saw the most random thing that I totally missed. I don't remember seeing anything.
I told you about it during the race.
Yeah, I think I was getting bits of it. Maybe I'll tell the story and then you can tell the story from what actually happened, because I think it was funny the way that it happened in my head.
Okay.
Where as I'm running on the course and Ryan, no, you tell the story, because I actually don't think you told me. I think you were like, I'll tell you after the race.
Really? I feel like, okay. All right. So here's the story. So I'm biking along, right? I'm on the sidewalk and I look down the road. We're probably like 9 miles into the race. And I look down the road and there's like some people out cheering on the course, And so this guy is out rollerblading on the sidewalk with like his grandma. And he's probably like 25 or something. And I noticed this guy is blind. Like he has like the blind sunglasses on and he's got the wand, the stick, and he's rollerblading blind down the sidewalk, right? And so he hears Chad coming and the crowd yelling for Chad. So this blind guy turns around and starts waving at Chad, but Chad's like already like 100 meters past him, but he doesn't know because he's blind, So he's waving the total wrong direction towards Chad. And then he just rolls off the path into like the dirt and just eats crap super hard. Oh man. And I was like, did that really just happen? Like I watch all this unfold on the bike right in front of me. I ride past this blind guy that's in the dirt. And I was like, should I stop and help this guy? His grandma was there. I was like, I guess he's all right. I guess if you're rollerblading blind, you've probably taken a few spills to know how to get back up.
Yeah. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I switched headphones. So when you first told me that story, I thought it was funny because afterwards I asked you, I was like, wait, how fast was he going? You're like, oh no, he's like putzing along. But when you first told me that story, like we have all these people in San Diego who are just like super good at skating, right? So they're like dancing backwards, going like 15 miles per hour. So I was imagining this guy just like cruising, like going like super fast. I was like, bold move, dude.
Yeah, I admire him. Blind guy going rollerblading, dude. You gotta hand it to him.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for sure. That's pretty cool.
But the most random thing I've ever seen on a race course, for sure, dude. I've seen some things, but nothing like that.
Yeah, that was random. I guess maybe the funniest thing that happened during the course of, especially the first half, is like I'm by myself, right? And I would get my bottle at a station and I would be drinking it and then I'd ditch it. And then sometimes like the full aid station was a little bit further and there's all these high school kids handing like their little cups of water, right? And I just wouldn't even look at them. I would just run straight by. And I think they felt like I was just giving the cold shoulder. And they'd be like, oh.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that, dude, because I was on the bike. I saw those guys reacting. They were just so mad when you wouldn't take their water.
Gosh. I know. I was like, sorry, I don't know what to do. Like,
the next time, just go by there and just knock them all out of the. That would be so great. They'd be so stoked, dude.
I know. Maybe we should, if you guys are watching this on YouTube or something, like comment somewhere what I should do in that situation if that happens again.
I think you knock it out of everyone's hand.
Knock it out. I was thinking you could also like take it and throw it on somebody else or something.
That could be good. That could be good. You have options, dude. We'll get some good ideas for the next one for sure.
That was at 6, that's at like 6:45 in the morning. I feel like that would be messed up to just like get these kids all soaking wet.
Maybe not with the Gatorade, dude.
Oh, yeah. I have had that happen in a bike race one time. I was going up, it's like a 110-mile race, and the last 5 miles were at like 12% gradient in this race in Utah. What's that?
That's mean.
Yeah, it's very mean. But anyways, I was suffering super bad, and I asked this guy for a bottle, and he handed it to me, and I just dumped it all over me. It was mixed. I was so sticky after that. I think like the clicks on my helmet never worked the same. They're just like totally trash.
Funny, dude. All right, I got a couple more. What was the most random craving you had during the race?
Man, I don't know if I had any cravings during the race. Do you get cravings during a marathon?
Oh yeah, I do. I'm thinking about Cinnabon like half the time out there.
I felt like when I finished, my stomach didn't feel like it wanted to eat anything. I feel like eating a decent amount the day before and the morning of, it's like, man, I think especially with the early morning, my stomach's just not ready for that much.
Yeah. All right, I got two more. What was the one that was? Remember my last one, but I had one that was before this. Maybe let's go. I'll remember this tonight too.
You can message me and I'll edit it back in.
All right. So last question, and that is advice you'd give for a first-time marathoner.
Yeah, I mean, I think we gave a lot of advice in the first half of this episode, or I guess it's going to be a separate episode. So I'd go listen to that one if you are a first-time marathoner and you want some tips from my first marathon. But I think the biggest one that we've touched on here and in general was like the biggest lesson I learned is like really take care of the in-race nutrition, like all the way to the finish line, which is something funny. Like you said this, in terms of like how much you can maximize that goes all the way almost to the finish as well. Like I think when I first started learning about marathon nutrition, I was kind of surprised that you typically would get a bottle at like 40 kilometers, right? Because that's like 2K from the finish. That seems like almost nothing. Like you can easily start thinking like, man, I'm just gonna finish it off and I'll eat when I'm done. But like I was watching the Tokyo Marathon where Cam Levins ran, 2:05:36, and he's taken that bottle at 40K. So I think that's a huge one that I think a lot of amateurs wouldn't understand or get, like the amount of nutrition you can take on during a race and how deep that you're taking that almost to the finish line. Because I think there's this tendency to think that what I can get away with is optimal when that's not actually true. There's probably a whole lot more that you can do to optimize your performance. And certainly, like at that point, you put in a lot of training, you've put in a lot of time to get there, like maximize that, like give yourself every advantage you can, especially when it's something easy, like just taking on some extra hydration, nutrition.
Yeah. Find those gels that you like, man. Find the ones you crave. It's easier taking stuff that you like the flavor of, So What's your favorite? Last question. What's your favorite gel flavor? That Coca-Cola one?
Well, that was very much looking to that Coca-Cola one. I do like that one. For some reason, I never drink Coke, but like Coke within the context of a race, for some reason, it just like gets you amped. I think the problem is like, say in cycling, a lot of times they'll look for Mexican Coke because it is real sugar as opposed to like high fructose corn syrup, which most of our Coke is. But anyway, so like the goo is great because you get the flavor you're looking for, but then you also have some electrolytes and it's kind of optimized for performance. I also very much like goo has like a s'mores flavor that's super good. Yeah, I think I have to go with s'mores is like kind of my all-time favorite in race nutrition. But also you have to go with what works. Like I like the Martin gels and all that stuff, but I just don't get terribly excited about it. And like you said, I think actually having something that gets you like that's a flavor that you enjoy is actually nice. Like I think that is actually something you should consider.
Do you think you could get away with like snacking on some like jelly beans?
Certain ones. From having done like all sorts of rando stuff on the bike, I would say uh, like bite through. Like I've gotten gummy things that you have to chew. Like Haribos are not good. Don't try to eat Haribos while you're doing any sort of exercise that's strenuous. Uh, Maybe, yeah. I think I could actually.
Dude, people always dissing on me for liking candy corn, dude. But I think it's like one of the premier like workout during workout.
Dude, I
Like,
was giving you a hard time with that. I was like, candy corn of all the candy? Candy corn was like, you get it on Halloween, you're like, ah, oh, geez, candy corn, what? No,
I love
but
candy corn, dude. I love that stuff.
okay, but I have to say, I was in your gym like years ago and you had candy corn and I tried and I was like, all right, I'll give it to him. The candy corn is good.
Dude, the pumpkins, they're totally different than the
Yeah.
candy.
No, the pumpkins are super good. I will give it to you. And actually in candy corn in general, I think actually there's certain sweets that sit really well on your stomach, and that one I feel like for whatever reason, like it feels like when you're working out, it just sits really well.
It's perfect. You just put a little salt on there and you're good to go.
Little salt,
Well,
just like lick it and dip it in some salt.
I'll make turn into some Mexican candy, some salt, some chili powder on there, dude. It'd be so good.
Dude, so I'll tell a quick little story, kind of similar. It just reminded me of it. My first half Ironman that I ever did, I would just come out of working with this triathlon team that was like a USA Triathlon sponsored team. So we were sponsored by Gatorade. So we had all these like Gatorade sleeves that just had these little sticky Gatorade things. And they're like, oh, these are cool. You can lick them and you can stick them on your top tube of your bike and they'll stick on there. So you don't even have to have stuff in your pocket. Because I had a triathlon suit that didn't have any pockets on it anyways. So I'm on dad's triathlon bike and I get on, I have these all stuck across like my entire top tube. So I have enough nutrition and I hit a crack in the road and all of them just go boom and shoot off. And I have zero on the bike nutrition now. So that's probably my worst. I think that's probably my worst like race nutrition faux pas.
That's a pretty good one, dude. We should try. Just put candy corns on your shoe, dude. See how long they'll stay on there during the race. You just flick them up to yourself.
No, you just like put them like in the part of your shorts, like the brief liner, and just have them all hanging out. You're just like reaching down.
You're just reaching into your crotch area.
You're like, that's what this is for, right? It's a storage unit. No, luckily race shorts these days are like great. They like have all these pockets in the back. I feel like old school shorts never had anything to like help you out.
No, we didn't have pockets, dude. That was extra.
Yeah, dude. I feel like yeah, looking back on the technology of the era in which you were running, it's like, man, there's some simple fixes that would have been massively helpful.
Yeah, we like to keep it simple, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, dude, it was good chatting, and again, congrats on your debut, dude. Looking forward to round two, man. And I'm sure we should come back on and debrief after Boston, because I'm sure there'll be lots of good lessons we can share with the people from that one. And yeah, dude, good luck in your training from here on out. Let's try to run that 450 pace 10-mile threshold
Every
tomorrow.
day.
We'll see how that. Once you master that, we'll move on to the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, man. Thank you too. I appreciate you being on this journey with me. And again, it's kind of like what I tell people about, getting a coach on board with you. It's just fun to have somebody to share the experience with, and it's so helpful to have somebody to chat with, and obviously you bring so much expertise to the equation. So yeah, it's been fun, and I'm super excited about moving forward.
Yeah, man, it's been a good ride. We're just getting going too.